Chapter 137. Going back the way he came. Feng Qi's figure shuttled through the dilapidated streets and tall buildings. He was very familiar with the terrain here. As he ran, he could easily identify where he was now and which area of the city ruins he was in. After mastering the talent ability evil thoughts and unlocking the spirit attribute, both his mental activity and memory had significantly improved. Now, he could even generate a vague city map in his mind to mark his location and what kind of territory monsters might exist in the nearby area. He ran until his telekinesis was exhausted, and he finally left the city ruins. In front of him was the boneyard he was most familiar with. He could see the wandering figures of the living dead from afar. But what made him curious was that there were a large number of orange-yellow lanterns floating in the sky above the boneyard. They were more like jellyfish than lanterns. Several illusory tentacles extended from the surface and danced in the wind. The yellow light source inside was like the tail of a firefly, flickering. It was a spectacular scene. The sky in front of him was almost covered by these lantern life forms. Their destination seemed to be the foggy area to the west of the underground shelter. From afar, he could see the lanterns constantly drilling into the foggy area and disappearing. After a brief hesitation, he chose to step into the boneyard and continued in the direction of the Star City Sanctuary. These lantern life forms looked very strange and could bring him danger. But staying in the same place was purely a waste of time, in his opinion. So even if there was a risk, he had to move forward. As he ran in the direction of the underground shelter, the strange lanterns along the way did not attack him. They still swayed their tentacles leisurely and drifted westward with the wind. As he got closer and closer to the underground shelter, a hoarse sigh came from the west, shrouded in fog. When Feng Qi heard it, he immediately looked in the direction of the sound. He saw figures constructed of pure blue energy appear in the fog. They were like evil spirits in ghost movies. As the fog spread, they emerged and tore at the lantern life forms in the sky. As more and more evil spirits appeared, the sky became very chaotic. The lantern life forms no longer drifted leisurely. Instead, they violently contracted their bodies and released orange-yellow energy beams in an attempt to drive away the evil spirits. But in front of the evil spirits, the lantern life form's resistance was very weak. The evil spirits roamed the sky as if they were eating a buffet. From time to time, they would tear open the outer shell of the lantern life form, take out the light source inside, and stuff it into their mouths. Run. Run as fast as you can. Don't get consumed by the mist, or you'll have to go offline early. Hearing the narrator's reminder, he raised his head and looked at the thick fog that was rapidly spreading from the west. Then, he did not hesitate to activate his blood source ability. His heart was beating faster and faster, and with every beat, the power of qi and blood would flow out of his body. More and more qi and blood emerged, gradually enveloping his body. Along with the rapid growth of his muscles, his body began to grow rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, he became a muscular man who was more than 2 meters tall. After activating his blood essence, Feng Qi's image was filled with a sense of oppression. At this moment, the muscles all over his body had congealed together. His arms were as thick as battle axes, and the veins on them were bulging like dragons. His body leaned forward, and his right foot stomped on the ground. Then, his body shot forward like a cannonball. The wind howled in his ears as he ran faster and faster. After killing Mala, his bloodline evolution points increased, and it also strengthened the effect of activating his blood essence. At this moment, he felt as if there was an endless amount of power surging in his body. It even made him feel that he could fight with Xiao He for 300 rounds without being at a disadvantage. Of course, he knew that this was just an illusion. Looking at the fog that was quickly spreading from afar, he suddenly heard a hoarse whisper. This voice was very strange, as if it had magic. He could not hear what it was saying, but the qi and blood in his body flowed uncontrollably with the change in tone. Something is using mind control on you. To be more precise, it is an indiscriminate group control. Quickly hide in the shelter. Otherwise, when the fog envelopes you, You won't be able to withstand it." Hearing the narrator's reminder, he immediately increased his running speed. He released the telekinesis that he had just recovered and turned it into a pushing force behind him. This was the first time he had seen something strange happening in the foggy area in his future dream. As he moved forward, he was getting closer and closer to the underground shelter. At this moment, an evil spirit in the sky looked at him as he ran. He saw the evil dragon reach out and tear apart the struggling lantern life form. It took out the light source from its body and stuffed it into its mouth. Then it pounced straight at Feng Qi. 9 o'clock. Pay attention. Hearing the narrator's reminder, he immediately turned his head to the left and saw an evil spirit with a ferocious expression pouncing at him. It was also his first time coming into contact with a spirit-type domain creature. He did not know whether he could fight it or not, but he did not hesitate to swing his axe-like right arm and hit the evil spirit from the side. But what he did not expect was that his right arm went straight through the evil spirit's body without causing any damage. His arm that came in contact with the evil spirit's body felt a chill, and this chill continued to seep into his body. Just as Feng Qi was stunned, the qi and blood in his body began to surge. Under the stimulation of the chill, the qi and blood in his body were activated, and then they came out of his body and covered his entire body. Feng Qi, who was covered by the dense qi and blood, was glowing red all over. He looked like a demon that had crawled out of hell, adding a hint of dominance to his already ferocious appearance. The rich qi and blood power instantly forced the evil spirit to retreat. After a short hesitation, it chose to pounce at Feng Qi again. Waiting for death was never Feng Qi's choice, so he swung his fist again. Suddenly, the surging qi and blood power around him quickly gathered in his right fist, completely covering his right arm. When his fist landed on the evil spirit's body, it did not go through like before. Like butter thrown into a pot of oil, the evil spirit's body quickly melted under the corrosion of the qi and blood, and it let out a sharp cry. In less than a moment, the evil spirit was melted by the qi and blood, leaving only a faint golden mist. See that? Don't think that you can't fight all kinds of non-physical monsters just because you're a muscular man. As long as your qi and blood are strong enough, there's no monster that you can't kill with one punch. Can the suction cup fight against non-physical evil spirits? It doesn't seem like she has any qi and blood-related abilities. He asked curiously when he heard the narrator's words. The qi and blood power in the suction cup is so strong that it's unimaginable. She doesn't even need to do anything. She's just standing there and continuously releasing group damage. In the eyes of the evil spirit, she's like the sun, continuously releasing high-intensity, destructive substances to melt their bodies. That's ridiculous. After listening to the narrator's explanation, Feng Qi could not help but exclaim. At that moment, the faint golden mist left behind by the evil spirit after its death entered his body. It was like drinking a glass of ice water on a hot summer day. The coolness spread throughout his body, and he could not help but shiver. His originally exhausted qi and blood also recovered a little. When he realized that he could obtain qi and blood by killing evil spirits, a surprised expression appeared on his face. The increase in qi and blood would bring him many benefits. For example, the increase in the strength and storage of psychokinesis, the improvement of his memory, and so on. Thinking of this, he immediately looked at the evil spirits floating in the sky. He had the urge to hunt evil spirits to increase the strength of his qi and blood. Be careful of the mist. The mist that's spreading contains all kinds of negative energy. If you're enveloped by the mist, you won't be able to hold on for long. Evacuate as soon as possible. He never doubted the narrator's judgment during critical moments. Therefore, he decisively gave up on the idea of hunting evil spirits and ran wildly in the direction of the shelter. At that moment, Feng Qi, who was surrounded by qi and blood, was like a burning torch in the dark to the evil spirit's senses. He was very conspicuous. Even though the qi and blood power would cause them harm, they were still tempted to pounce on Feng Qi. They were like moths flying into a flame, or flying toward a mosquito extinguisher on a summer day. They would eventually turn into mosquitoes that were making crackling sounds. Seeing that a large number of evil spirits were attracted to pounce on him, he suddenly felt his scalp go numb. The chi and blood power in his body was the foundation to maintain his blood supply. When he killed evil spirits, his chi and blood power would be depleted faster. If he let a large number of evil spirits pounce on him, the surging chi and blood power in his body might be extinguished instantly. Without his blood supply status, his body strength would be greatly weakened, and he would not be able to cause any harm to the evil spirits. At that moment, he released some of his recovered telekinesis outside his body, turning it into an invisible force that increased his running speed. When running at high speed, he could not easily change his direction. Therefore, he charged forward like a raging bull. He did not even bother to dodge the living dead that blocked his way. He directly smashed them into minced meat that filled the air. Finally, before the mist arrived, he leaped into the metal passage of the shelter. When he followed the metal passage to the underground square, the muscles on his body began to disintegrate, turning into pale red chi and dissipating. A sense of weakness welled up in his heart. He did not stop and immediately stepped in front of the data control panel. Taking advantage of the fact that Xiao He had not arrived yet, he opened the ability library and began to search for the ability library that he wanted to bring back this time. After searching for a while, he locked onto a combat skill that was evaluated as a 2-star combat skill. After he clicked confirm, the video interface popped up and he began to watch the instructional video. Cultivation ability library had no effect on him at all. After all, his current body was very special, and he could not retain spirit energy in his body. However, body cultivation ability library was different. It contained many combat skills that could significantly increase his combat strength. After a few hours, he, who had memorized the body cultivation ability library, closed the instructional video. At that moment, Xiao He had not arrived yet. He began to flip through the Cultivation Ability Library's research and thought courses, starting from the first section, as usual, in the outside world. A figure shrouded in black fog came from the city ruins to the boneyard. At that moment, nearly half of the boneyard was shrouded in fog. The sky was shrouded in hovering and wailing evil spirits and lantern life forms that were being massacred. Xiao He's appearance quickly attracted the evil spirit's attention, and a large number of evil spirits immediately pounced on it. In the face of the evil spirit's attack, Blackie turned a blind eye and directly floated forward. However, when the evil spirits touched its body, their spirit bodies melted at a speed visible to the naked eye, disappearing in the blink of an eye. They could not cause any damage at all. If one looked at it from a microscopic point of view, one would be able to clearly see what was happening. When the evil spirit bodies came into contact with Xiao He's body, the spiritual nanoworms on the surface of Xiao He's body began to gnaw on the spirit bodies, and they quickly spread forward. In less than a second, the spirit bodies would be completely absorbed. As more and more evil spirits surged over, Xiao He's body gradually turned from a solid to a mist-like state. Countless black fog particles rushed forward like a tide, and wherever they passed, the evil spirits were all gnawed to nothing by the black fog. Xiao He's mist-like body continued to expand as it gnawed on the energy as if it was multiplying. When the fog came into contact with Xiao He's body, the parts that came into contact with it were also gnawed to nothing by the black fog. The low murmurs that had rung in Feng Qi's ears back then turned into violent roars at this moment. The thick grayish-white fog quickly pressed down on Xiao He. However, in front of Xiao He's devouring ability, no amount of energy was enough. No matter how much fog surged over, it would all be devoured by the black fog. After a moment of stalemate with Xiao He, the special life form in the fog seemed to have realized how terrifying Xiao He was. Then a hoarse whisper came from the fog, and then the grayish-white fog retreated like a tide. Even the evil spirits that filled the sky began to quickly retreat with the fog. In this battle, Xiao He had won by scaring away his opponent before he had even shown his strength. After shrinking and condensing his body, Xiaohei did not chase after the retreating fog. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the location of the Star City Sanctuary. Feng Qi, who was still looking through the database, closed the video page of the second class. He began to look through historical events in the remaining time. In particular, he wanted to confirm whether the establishment date of the Destiny Society had been changed. If not, then he would strike hard. At this time, Xiaohei had not yet arrived. He could think of the reason. Obviously, it had something to do with the fog in the outside world. The fog spread and spread, delayed Xiaohei's arrival. As for whether the fog could stop Xiaohei's attack, he did not have much hope. The more he knew about Xiaohei, the more he knew how terrifying Xiaohei was. According to the information left by the Scarlet Institute, this thing was almost unsolvable. Unless it was a chaotic super disaster, ordinary domain creatures would not be able to resist in front of it. He had come into contact with the evil spirits, so he knew how fragile the evil spirits, which were made of pure energy, were in front of Xiaohei. The psionic nanoworms could devour energy 50 million times larger than their body volume. This was only the result of the test, and it was not the limit of the psionic nanoworms' devouring ability. One could imagine how terrifying the energy-devouring ability of Xiaohei, who was made entirely of psionic nanoworms, was. In front of Xiaohei, the evil spirits had met their natural enemy. No matter how much they devoured, it would not be enough for Xiaohei. At this moment, the voice of the narrator rang in his mind. Suddenly turning around, Black is already at the metal passage. Agi, it's time to say goodbye to you. Before we leave, can you grant me a wish? No. After saying that, he turned to look at the metal passage. Xiaohei, who was shrouded in black fog, was quietly floating over at this moment. Narrator, I'll see you in reality. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Qi adopted the starting stance of the newly learned star Shattering Palm. Even if he was definitely not Xiaohei's match, he would still choose to make a last-ditch effort. Continuing to fight was his attitude toward Xiaohei, and also his attitude toward the future. A few seconds later, Feng Qi was enveloped by the black fog, and his consciousness gradually sank. Realizing that he was about to return to reality, he prepared himself mentally. After returning to reality, the first thing he had to do was to remove the werewolf that the Research Institute had planted beside him. Chapter 138. Star City University, Dormitory 301. Sitting in front of his desk, Feng Qi was calculating his harvest from the future dream. Under the control of his telekinesis, the pen was smoothly writing on the notebook. The Scarlet Institute's future timeline had finally cleared the fog and allowed him to see the truth. He now knew who was hiding in the shadows of human civilization. Right now, he needed to organize the information and begin to formulate a plan to deal with the Research Institute. As for Lu Pingyan, since he had already confirmed that he was a werewolf, he would not be merciful. He also would not think about reforming him. Since his position was wrong, there was no need to redeem it. He was completely different from Mu Qing. Although Mu Qing was called the Great Demon King in history, he had always been fighting for humanity. He had chosen the secret and great path of self-sacrifice. When he first learned that Mu Qing had betrayed humanity, he also had the thought of killing him. However, he did not have any answers to his doubts, so he chose to continue learning the truth. Lu Pingyan's situation was completely different. He stood on humanity's side, but in reality, he had always been working for the Research Institute that wanted to overthrow humanity. The two of them were fundamentally different. As for whether or not killing Lu Pingyan would alert the enemy, he was not worried. In the real world, Lu Pingyan did not suspect him. The Research Institute behind him also did not take any precautions against him. As long as he dealt with it properly, no one would suspect him after Lu Pingyan's death, because he did not have any motive to kill him. After pondering for a moment, he continued to write down his harvest from the future dream. Bloodline evolution points have reached 852, remaining 148 bloodline evolution points required to evolve to the next class. Bloodline evolution points required to evolve to the next class. Note: In the future, you can have the Scarlet Institute prepare a rune-modified creature for you to increase your strength. Bloodline evolution points. Obtain a small increase in mental strength from killing an evil spirit. Note: an evil spirit is a domain-derived creature similar to an undead. No rune crystals were found on its body. No innate ability was obtained after killing it. It can be considered a domain monster that can increase mental strength. This time, there are only 2 records of his strength increase in the future dreamscape. However, the harvest was not small. After killing Mala, who had lived for a long time, the bloodline evolution points he gained were equivalent to killing 3 or 4 normal domain creatures. At the same time, its ability to regenerate cells was not weak. It had great potential for growth in the future. If he could avoid the fate of dying young, his cell regeneration ability would allow him to have a long lifespan. Next was the Harvest of Intelligence. This was also the greatest reward he had gained from the future dream. First, the identity of the werewolf hiding beside him was confirmed. Lu Pingyan. Note: it needs to be removed as soon as possible to carry out the follow-up plan against the Science and Technology Research Institute. Secondly, it was clear that the Science and Technology Research Institute was a malignant force lurking in the human civilization. Note: you can choose a timeline to cooperate with Mo Fei and try to destroy the Research Institute. Third, through the information provided by the Scarlet Institute, he learned that Xiaohe was most likely an amalgamation of psionic nano-insects created by the Science and Technology Research Institute. Note: after being created, Xiaohe might have lost control and escaped the Science and Technology Research Institute's control. Fourth, the Scarlet Institute's research on the brain in a vat project has made progress. In the future, he can cooperate with the Scarlet Institute in this area. Fifth, he did not see the domain creature after it was killed. He guessed that the domain creature that was killed was erased from the timeline. It could also be that the domain creature that was killed coincidentally disappeared due to the change in history. Note: domain creatures are not affected. For example, no matter how many times it is killed, it will always be there. Killing this type of domain creature will not extract its innate ability. As he continued to write, a few more pages of recorded information appeared in the notebook. These records were more like memos. He would organize the information in his mind and make it easier to use in the future. As for the safety of the information, he was not worried. Every time he carried out a mission that could expose his secret, the future him could burn the notebook in advance. This way, no traces could be found. It was even safer than the information stored on the network. In one of the timelines, he was targeted by the Science and Technology Research Institute because he was too exposed. Then, all the information stored on the network was deleted. After he finished writing, he began to flip through the information recorded in the notebook. Until now, he still had a lot of questions that were difficult to answer. For example, if the Science and Technology Research Institute had so much power and could suppress the Scarlet Institute in all aspects, why did they not have the idea of directly destroying the human civilization? Regarding this, 2 guesses appeared in his mind. First, although the Science and Technology Research Institute was powerful, they were still far from being able to fight against the integration of all the human forces. Therefore, they chose not to expose themselves and continued to hide in the human civilization, looking for opportunities to destroy the human civilization without shedding a drop of blood. Second, the domain creatures were not completely united. They were also enemies. The domain creatures that controlled the Science and Technology Research Institute were afraid of the other hidden forces that were hiding in the human civilization. They did not want to easily make a move and let the other forces reap the benefits. But no matter what the result was, the Science and Technology Research Institute had to be eliminated. He closed the notebook, sat in front of the desk, and fell into deep thought. How to kill Lu Ping and without exposing himself was a big problem he had to face now. There were a lot of cameras installed in the school. If he directly went to Lu Ping's dorm and killed him, he would definitely expose himself. Therefore, he had to think of a way to ask Lu Ping out. During the appointment process, he could not use his cell phone or other communication tools. Leaving a call record was a troublesome matter. Perhaps the contents of the call could be found. At that time, He would not be able to explain himself. Was he going to explain to the public that he killed Lu Ping for the development of human civilization? Who would believe him? They would definitely think that he was a lunatic who even killed his own student. Then, they would arrange for him to be imprisoned for life. After thinking for a while, he stood up and walked toward Lu Ping's dorm. Moments later, he arrived at Lu Ping's room. After knocking a few times, the door opened. Seeing that it was him, Lu Ping smiled shyly and said softly, "Brother Qi, why are you here? Brother Qi, why are you here? I have a few things I want to ask you about. Are you free now?" "I'm free anytime. Come in." Lu Ping immediately stepped aside and gestured for him to come in. He walked into the room, which was filled with a faint medicinal fragrance. All kinds of cultivation books were piled up in front of the desk, and the open notebook was filled with important points. Seeing this scene, Feng Qi was slightly moved. In fact, until now, he still didn't understand why Lu Ping would betray humanity. What could a domain creature give him? If humanity was destroyed, could this group of traitors coexist peacefully with domain creatures? Wouldn't they still end up as slaves? "Brother Qi, take a seat first. I'll go get you a drink." After Lu Ping left, he reached out and picked up the notebook in front of the desk. From the densely packed written records, it could be seen that Lu Ping had put in a lot of effort. At this moment, Lu Ping returned and placed a drink filled with orange juice beside the desk. Then he smiled and said, "Brother Qi, I've recently encountered a few problems in my cultivation technique research. Coincidentally, you're here." Upon hearing this, Feng Qi didn't directly respond. Instead, he smiled and asked, "Ping'an, you've been studying so much. Ping'an, you're working so hard to learn cultivation. Do you have any plans after graduation? Why don't you learn mechanical science from your parents?" "I'm not interested in mechanical science. My dream is to join the Cultivation Technique Research Institute." Upon hearing this, many thoughts surfaced in Feng Qi's mind. Back then, he had thought that Lu Ping had his own hobbies like Mo Fei, so he had chosen the future path that he liked. However, now that he knew that Lu Ping was a werewolf, he couldn't help but suspect Lu Ping's motive for wanting to join the Cultivation Technique Research Institute. So, the Research Institute of Science and Technology is trying to let Lu Ping infiltrate a certain cultivation technique research institute. He didn't think too much about this. After continuing to chat and answering a few of Lu Ping's cultivation questions, he got to the point. "Ping'an, come to the back of the mountain tomorrow night after midnight and test a new cultivation technique for me." "Have you developed a new cultivation technique again?" Lu Ping immediately asked with interest. "Yes, but this cultivation technique is rather special. It's suitable for cultivation late at night. Its attribute is inclined toward the wood element, so it's suitable for cultivation in areas with lush vegetation." Upon hearing this, Lu Ping didn't have any doubts and immediately nodded. "No problem. Actually, I don't want you to test it for me. That would be irresponsible of you. This cultivation technique isn't perfect yet, so there might be some physical problems during the test. I mainly want you to check it for me. For example, if I make a mistake during cultivation, call for help in time. Otherwise, I won't even know how I died." There's definitely no problem with the cultivation technique developed by Brother Qi. Lu Ping scratched his head and smiled. After making the agreement, he left Lu Ping's room. He gave Lu Ping a day to prepare and also gave himself a day to prepare. Next, he carefully checked the cameras near the dormitory building. After roughly determining the location of each camera, he made a plan in his mind. The next day, late at night, the full moon hung high in the sky, and the bright moonlight shone on the earth. At this moment, Feng Qi opened the window. Psychic power seeped out of his body and enveloped him. Then his body was lifted out of the window. His body rose by more than 100 meters. He bypassed all the cameras and flew straight to the back mountain of Star City University. His psychic power was quickly depleted during the flight. Fortunately, it supported him to fly to the back mountain of the university. The vegetation here was lush, and there was a pavilion. On both sides of the pavilion, there were inscriptions written by the senior scholars of the university. Standing here, one could see the night view of Star City University. After waiting for a few hours, Lu Pingyin, who was wearing a student uniform, appeared in the distance and walked quickly along the mountain path. "Brother Qi, you're here." Seeing him standing in front of the pavilion, Lu Pingyin immediately greeted him with a shy smile. Looking at Lu Pingyin, Feng Qi's heart rippled. However, he had no other choice. Since he was sure that Lu Pingyin was a werewolf, he wouldn't go easy on him. At this moment, the mountain breeze brushed against his face. After a few seconds of silence, he asked, "Pingyin, why did you betray humans and stand on the side of a domain creature?" Faced with the question, the smile on Lu Pingyin's face instantly froze. He was at a loss. "Brother Qi, what are you talking about?" At this moment, Feng Qi activated his psychic power and snatched the phone that Lu Pingyin had secretly taken out. He clenched his fist and dismembered the phone before throwing it down the mountain. "Pingyin, stop pretending. I know everything." Looking at Feng Qi's cold expression, Lu Pingyin's face showed a hint of bitterness. "Can you tell me how you know? Tell me first, why did you choose to betray humans?" Lu Pingyin's body trembled slightly, as if he had realized what he was about to face. The shy smile on his face instantly turned into a hysterical malevolence. "Why? There's no why. Is it wrong for me to live for myself? That's not a reason for you to betray humans," Feng Qi said coldly. "Don't pretend to be so virtuous. Don't judge me from the moral high ground if you haven't experienced what I went through. You're not worthy." At this moment, Lu Pingyin's appearance had completely changed. He no longer had his former modesty. Looking at Feng Qi's cold expression, Lu Pingyin's trembling body continued. "I didn't want to, but I had no choice. I really had no choice." With that said, before Feng Qi could make a move, he suddenly opened his mouth and coughed out a mouthful of blood. "Haha, Brother Qi, don't think of getting any information from me. Since I've been exposed, I don't plan on living." Seeing Lu Pingyin vomit blood, Feng Qi suddenly thought of the description and the information he left behind in the future. All captured members of the Dark Forces would use a mysterious method to commit suicide. They could make themselves die quickly, and their corpses would gradually decompose and dissipate. Realizing that Lu Pingyin was using that method to commit suicide, he immediately stepped forward and reached out to grab Lu Pingyin. His fingers touched Lu Pingyin, who was already in a daze, and the nightmare ability suddenly activated. Countless memory fragments and information poured into his mind. "Pingyin, you must become a useful person to society in the future." "Pingyin, what's your dream?" "The Science and Technology Research Institute?" "As expected of my good son. We have the same hobbies. Technology is the future." "Son, if your father can't complete this research, you must complete it for me when you grow up. This technology might change the future of mankind." Countless memories and information intertwined in Feng Qi's mind. He saw many memories of Lu Pingyin's growth. Lu Pingyin grew up with his parents as a child. His life was blissful. His parents were high-ranking members of the Science and Technology Research Institute. They did not lack material conditions. Therefore, Lu Pingyin always had a smile on his face when he was a child. He especially liked to act coquettishly with his parents, lying in their arms and listening to their stories. Skimming through most of the information about Lu Pingyin's growth, one of the images caught Feng Qi's attention. In this memory, Lu Pingyin was lying on the bed as if he was sick. He was wearing an oxygen respirator on his face. From Lu Pingyin's perspective, he could see that his parents were lying on the bed, looking at him sadly. During this period, his father would slap himself from time to time, saying words of self-reproach. Lu Pingyin, who was lying on the bed, was getting weaker and weaker. The vitality in his body was quietly flowing away with every breath. At this moment, a black shadow appeared in front of the bed. Feng Qi could not hear what the black shadow in the image was saying. Listening to the black shadow, the couple looked conflicted. In the end, Lu Pingyin's father took out a psionic gun from his waist and aimed at the black shadow. However, it was obvious that his hand holding the gun was trembling. At this moment, Lu Pingyin's mother pressed down on the muzzle and nodded with a painful expression. At this moment, Lu Ping's father seemed to have lost all his strength. He sat on the ground, paralyzed, and tears rolled down his face. The black silhouette placed its hand on Lu Ping's forehead. With a gentle caress, a clump of black energy seeped into Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping's originally pale face turned slightly red. His intermittent breathing began to calm down. Seeing this memory, Fengqi suddenly realized why Lu Ping's parents betrayed humanity. In order to save Lu Ping's life, they chose to let Lu Ping live after some internal struggle. This was undoubtedly a deal with the devil. In the days that followed, Lu Ping began to work for the transcendent creature that infiltrated the Science and Technology Research Institute's domain. This was his parents' choice. Therefore, he had no other choice. After his parents completed the deal with the domain creature, he could no longer choose the light path. He could only walk the path of darkness. However, the domain creature that infiltrated the Science and Technology Research Institute was very mysterious. Even in front of Lu Ping, he had never exposed his appearance. Cough, cough. At this moment, Lu Ping coughed up blood again, interrupting Feng Qi's memory retrieval. Brother Qi, actually, my dream when I was young was to fight for the rise of humanity. At the moment of his death, Lu Ping regained his consciousness as if he had a momentary flash of consciousness. Then, he looked at Feng Qi and continued, Brother Qi, let me ask you a question. Suppose your child is terminally ill and can't be treated while lying on a hospital bed. At this time, a devil finds you. He says that not only can he cure your child's life, but he can also give you a near-eternal lifespan and any material requirements. The price is that a group of people who have nothing to do with you will die, and no one will know what you have done. What will you choose at this time? In the face of this question, he already understood Lu Ping's thoughts. As if talking to himself, Lu Ping continued muttering, You don't have to answer me. Remember the thoughts in your heart. Perhaps one day, you will also face such a choice. They weren't wrong. Looking at the gradually dispirited Lu Ping, Feng Qi couldn't help but sigh. The moment when humanity collapses is ugly, but when they're faced with a choice, every minute and every second of the struggle between heaven and earth is worthy of respect. But in the end, they made the wrong choice. Yes, they made the wrong choice, but they weren't wrong. At least, in my opinion, they weren't wrong. Good and evil are things that change according to one's standpoint. They weren't wrong. At this moment, Lu Ping could no longer speak clearly as he kept vomiting blood. Seeing Lu Ping in such a state, he felt upset. After checking Lu Ping's memories, he knew that Lu Ping wasn't lying when he said that his dream, when he was young, was to fight for the rise of humanity. That was also his parents' hope for his future. However, his parents were the first to betray this promise and were willing to throw themselves into the darkness for him. After his parents made their choice, he had no other choice. This was the price of making a deal with the devil. In the future, he could only choose to stand on the side of the darkness. Brother Qi, it's so cold. Am I going to die? Hugging Lu Ping in his arms, Feng Qi didn't say anything. The hatred in his heart for the domain creatures continued to deepen. At this moment, Lu Ping was no longer able to speak. He kept coughing up blood. His eyes were filled with longing for this world as he burned out his last wisp of vitality. In the end, his body dissipated bit by bit in Feng Qi's arms like energy fragments, turning into sparkling specks of light in the night. The mountain breeze blew, and the sparkling mist dissipated with the wind. Standing up and looking at the brightly lit night view of Star City University, Feng Qi's heart was filled with complicated emotions. Narrator, do you think human nature is good or evil? Human nature is evil. Newborn babies only know how to take. It's impossible for them to know how to give and be grateful. But I feel that people are learning how to be kind throughout their lives. Growing up with family, friendship, love, every kind of beauty in the world will make people learn how to be kind. Hearing the narrator's answer, Feng Qi nodded. At this moment, the mountain breeze blew past his cheeks. The grass and trees swayed in the wind, making a rustling sound. The emotions in his heart also surged with the night wind. Lu Ping and was very pitiful, but he chose the wrong side. He said that he didn't experience it and wouldn't understand, but Feng Qi already had the answer to that question in his heart. He wouldn't agree to the choice given by the devil, and he wouldn't choose to give up. He would work hard to find a chance of survival. Even if the hope was slim, he would find it until he was exhausted and powerless. Even if the ending was regrettable and would make him suffer. The road to his dream was bound to be full of thorns, but no matter what the ending was, as long as he had a clear conscience. Every time he crossed the mountains, the flowers might not bloom in spring. Every time he traveled through wind and rain, the sky might not be filled with rosy clouds. But he wouldn't choose to give in, compromise, or give up. Even if he had to stand before the dusk of doomsday in the end to witness his own failure, he would be like Murakami, pointing his spear at the blood moon and facing the enemies in the sky until he died. Lu Ping said that good and evil weren't unchangeable. They would change according to one's position. In his view, that was just the position of the infirm. As a human, why not face the arrows head-on and sacrifice oneself for a bright future for mankind? The enemy being too powerful was not an excuse to choose to give in. Life was like an ant, so one should have a great ambition. Life was as thin as paper, so one should have an unyielding heart. Since the universe is not set and the ending has not been seen, I am the dark horse. At this time, the rising red sun revealed a corner at the end of the horizon. Standing on the top of the mountain and looking up, he saw the sudden appearance of tens of thousands of rays of light tearing through the night sky and dyeing the sky red. Looking for subscription, looking for monthly votes. Chapter 139. In the next few days, Lu Ping, Anne's disappearance became a hot topic in Star City University. Law enforcement officers also entered Star City University to investigate Lu Ping, Anne's disappearance. During this period, Feng Qi was also questioned by law enforcement officers. For example, they asked him, what was Lu Ping, Anne's usual behavior? Did Lu Ping and have a feud with someone in the school? Did Lu Ping and behave strangely, or was he mentally depressed, etc.? Regarding these questions, he chose to answer them truthfully. After taking his statement, the law enforcement officers didn't suspect him at all because he didn't have a motive to kill. Finally, after the law enforcement officers pulled up the surveillance footage, they followed Lu Ping's route at night and found Lu Ping's broken phone at the peak of the mountain behind the school. After testing, they found that only Lu Ping's fingerprints were on it. After checking the fresh footprints on the mountain, only Lu Ping's footprints were found. It seemed that he had mysteriously disappeared after arriving at the peak of the mountain in the wee hours of the morning. The school's forum was also in a heated discussion about this matter. The students' imaginations ran wild, and they came up with versions of Lu Ping's disappearance. Fantasy version, Lu Ping was pulled away by 9 dragons pulling a coffin at the peak of the mountain. Xinxia version, Lu Ping accidentally entered a mysterious cave at the peak of the mountain and found a god-level cultivation method inside. Because one day in the cave was 1,000 years in the outside world, he came out after 1,000 years. Science fiction version, Lu Ping accidentally touched a space-time node at the peak of the mountain and traveled to the future or ancient times. Fantasy version, Lu Ping brought the cultivation method into the magic world and began to use it to beat the magic natives of the other world, reaching the peak of his life. 2D version, Lu Ping became a hero and was summoned by the suffering people of the other world to be their savior. The enemy was very likely to be a world-destroying demon king or an evil dragon. Supernatural version, Lu Ping's ghost hovered at the peak of the mountain. These speculations were unreliable, and there was no evidence to prove the reason for Lu Ping's disappearance. The investigation reached a bottleneck. In order not to affect the students' studies, only one investigator was left behind. The rest of the investigators left Star City University one after another. The disappearance of Lu Ping was basically defined as an unsolved case. Without clear clues, it was impossible to conduct a follow-up investigation. At this moment, she left for restaurant. During lunch, Feng Qi was a little absent-minded. As for Lu Ping's death, he felt a trace of guilt in his heart. But what he felt guilty about was his own student, Lu Ping, who often discussed cultivation knowledge with him and taught him how to brew Qingxin wine, and not Lu Ping, who worked for the Science and Technology Research Institute. Since Lu Ping stood on the opposite side of the human race, he was his mortal enemy, and there was no possibility of compromise. He had a clear conscience for killing a werewolf. Brother Qi, are you thinking about Ping Yin's disappearance? Lin Ran turned to look at him. No, I'm thinking about the future of a human race. What's there to think about? We can't even see the future of a human race. All we can do is work hard to promote the development of human civilization and create hope for the future, Lin Ran said with a grin. You're right. Feng Qi smiled faintly and began to eat. Although Lin Ran and Mu Qing were concerned about Lu Pingyin's disappearance, they did not take it to heart. They had very little contact with Lu Pingyin and had no feelings for him. They were just passers-by, classmates. But the two of them were very worried about his emotions and kept comforting him. A moment later, Lin Ran finished the food on her plate and turned to ask him, What's the matter? Brother Qi, have you thought about the freshman class team competition? Faced with the question, he looked up. I've been studying the battle team configuration recently. I'll make arrangements after I figure it out. I think with Lu Yu around, our class has the qualifications to enter the top 3 in the Eastern region with his combat strength alone. I think his strength has reached the level of at least the core combat strength of an A-class battle team, Lin Ran said with a chuckle. What's the big deal about being in the top 3? I want to be the champion. If Senior and I participate, we'll definitely be the champion. Unfortunately, we can't be considered freshmen anymore. Lin Ran shook his head and sighed. If Senior can participate, does it matter if you participate or not? Are you going to be a pendant, or are you going to serve tea? Hearing the two of them discussing her, Mu Qing quietly pricked up her ears. Senior, am I right? Feng Qi looked at her with a smile. Yes. Mu Qing nodded vigorously in agreement. Then, she lowered her head and continued to eat. Senior hid her strength too well. There's also Lu Yu. I thought I was strong enough, but I didn't expect there to be so many hidden talents around me. Brother Qi, did you hide your strength too? Are you stronger than Senior? Lin Ran looked at him suspiciously as he spoke. I didn't expect you to find out, even though I hid it so well. Then what's your strength? Lin Ran's gossipy heart burned fiercely. He immediately got to the bottom of it. Senior, I could take on 10 people like you. Do you believe me? Bullsh asterisk T. Lin Ran could not help but hiss when he heard Feng Qi's answer. At this moment, Mu Qing looked up and said seriously, I believe you. She gave Feng Qi enough face. After lunch, Feng Qi returned to the dormitory. He opened his notebook and began to flip through the future plans that he had recorded over the past few days. This time, he gave himself 2 options. First option, build a force to fight against the Research Institute. During this time, you can also ally with the Scarlet Institute to test the Research Institute's true strength. Hidden danger. The Research Institute's strength is unknown. The fight is likely to fail. But if it succeeds, the future world will undergo earth-shattering changes. Note, the current situation is that I'm in the dark and the Research Institute is in the light. I have the initiative. Second option, join Min Can to understand Murakami's secret and the truth behind Mu Qing's massacre. Hidden danger. When Min Can is established, I may die early for some reason. This future plan may accomplish nothing. How should he choose between the 2 future plans? He fell into deep thought. Sitting in front of his desk, he thought for a long time before finally making a decision. He chose the first future plan. This future plan would allow him to understand the Research Institute in more detail. If he succeeded, he might be able to change the future. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Hearing the sound, he immediately got up and went to open the door. 2 middle-aged men wearing Star City University's security uniforms stood at the door. They were sweating profusely and pointed at the 3 devices in the cart. Student Feng, are these the things you bought online? Sorry to trouble you. Realizing that the drug refining devices he bought online had been delivered, he immediately thanked them. Then, with their help, the 3 devices were moved into the room. Before leaving, Feng Qi wanted to give the security uncle 2 bottles of drinks, but he was politely rejected. Closing the door, he began to open the package. The devices were all assembled, so he didn't need to figure out how to assemble them. But he still followed the instructions on the manual and carefully cleaned the 3 devices from the inside out. There was still half a bottle of the sake wine he made last time. It was enough for him to enter the future dream, but he still wanted to try making it himself. He already learned all the details from Lu Pingyan, but he hadn't practiced it yet. After connecting the 3 devices to a power source, he took out the spiritual materials that had been delivered yesterday from a fridge. Placing the 8 spiritual materials on the desk, he calmed down and began to think about Lu Pingyan's operation when he was refining the drug. These 3 devices were used for measurement, extraction, and fusion. First, he measured the medicinal properties of each spiritual material. Then, he measured the weight of each material and cut out any parts that exceeded the standard weight. Then, he threw the materials into the extraction device according to the order, extracting different colored liquids. Soon, the room was filled with a rich medicinal fragrance. Next was the step of fusing the medicinal liquids. This was the most crucial step. Whether or not it would succeed depended entirely on this step. During this time, he needed to pay attention to the temperature changes of the medicinal liquids during the fusion. Sometimes he would choose a fierce flame, and sometimes he would choose a mild flame. He also needed to add a blending agent that could stabilize the fusion of the medicinal liquids. According to Lu Pingyan's method, he first poured the blue heart grass and ice crystal fruit liquids into the fusion device. After heating them, he began to wait for the 2 spiritual liquids to mix. Under his expectant gaze, the light blue and dark blue liquids began to slowly fuse together. There was no rejection reaction during the process. After waiting for about 15 minutes, he added the 3rd type of medicinal liquid. This time, there were some changes during the fusion process. Dense bubbles continuously appeared on the surface of the medicinal liquids. It seemed like there was a violent reaction going on inside. Following that was the 4th medicinal liquid, the 5th medicinal liquid. The fusion process went according to the steps without any mistakes. But when he poured the last type of medicinal liquid into the fusion device, the medicinal liquid that had already turned purple suddenly began to fluctuate violently. The fusion device also began to tremble. Realizing that there was a violent rejection reaction during the fusion process, he immediately poured in a white blending agent. In a hurry, he poured in an excessive amount of blending agent. The medicinal liquids that had been boiling during the fusion process suddenly stopped. The finished clear heart wine was light blue, but the medicinal liquid was still in a purple state. Feng Qi, realizing that his first attempt had failed, his heart ached. He thought that there would be no problems if he followed the steps, but he didn't expect to fail at the last step. He only hated himself for shaking his hand and pouring in too much blending agent. Uncle Farmer dug you out of the ground with a face full of joy. He held you in his hands and praised. Good food, really good food. The narration appeared at the right time and mocked him. Realizing that he had lost more than 1,000,000 yuan, he only felt pain in his liver, stomach, and all over his body. Originally, he had a savings of 6 million yuan. After spending 25 million yuan to buy the ingredients for the clear heart wine and 450,000 yuan to buy the alchemy equipment, he only had 9 million yuan left. Thinking about how he would have to spend when Feng Zhio arrived, he felt even more distressed. Every time he brewed the clear heart wine, he could save about 350,000 yuan, which was equivalent to 3.5 times for free. Fortunately, he felt that he had mastered the detailed process of brewing. As long as his hand didn't shake at the last step, there shouldn't be any problems in the future. This money could be saved sooner or later. While feeling depressed, he turned his gaze to the half-empty bottle of Qingxin wine under the desk. At this time, the energy progress bar was at 63%. Half a bottle of clear heart wine was enough for him to enter the future dream. So he went to the desk and bent down to pick up the clear heart wine. He pulled out the cork and drank it in one gulp. While he felt hot all over, the energy progress bar jumped. As he waited, the energy progress bar finally stopped at 149.9%. While he was drunk, he immediately lay down on the bed and prepared to enter the future dream. In this future timeline, he would inevitably have to fight openly and covertly with the Science and Technology Research Institute. During this time, many things would inevitably happen that would change the future. He felt that in the history of this timeline, he and his comrades would have a fierce confrontation with the enemy. It would be full of blood and excitement. Although he couldn't experience it himself, he could understand part of it through history. Don't be too sure. It could also be a tragic life where you die young. Ignoring the sarcasm of the narration, he lay on the bed, hugged the quilt, and closed his eyes. Time passed slowly. As his mind emptied, his expression gradually became calm and serene. The moment he opened his eyes, Feng Qi was stunned by the scene in front of him. This time, the future dream world. The sky was not completely covered by the blood moon. To the west, the blood moon was in the sky, and to the east, the scorching sun was hanging high. The whole world seemed to be divided into two halves, and he was standing in the center of the two worlds. Was the future really changed? Chapter 140. The scene in front of him caught Feng Qi off guard. The world in the future dreamscape had changed in a way that had never happened before. Although the blood moon was there, the sun had yet to set. The end of the world's destruction has been delayed. In this future timeline, you chose to fight against the Research Institute of Science and Technology. Perhaps the Research Institute of Science and Technology was heavily damaged by the organization you lead in this timeline, or even eradicated. Therefore, the development of human civilization will definitely become better, thus slowing down the pace of the domain invasion. But it seems like the ending is still the same. Hearing the narration, he raised his head and looked at the blood moon that was slowly moving to the east, as well as the flickering and twisting patterns at the border between the two worlds. Just as the narration said, the real world was still in danger and was still being slowly devoured by the domain world. But the world had changed, and he felt that perhaps humans were not extinct yet. He looked around. The area he was in had not become a graveyard, and there were no zombies everywhere. Even more so, there was no Shaukin that greeted him with a split every time he came. The Star City Sanctuary in his memory was now tightly surrounded by steel walls, and there was a statue in front of the city gate. He could vaguely see a figure moving on the city wall. Excited, he immediately ran towards the Star City Sanctuary. Along the way, there were broken roads, and there were tracks left by large machines. Orange daylilies grew on both sides of the road, and there was a sweet fragrance in the air. Compared to the future dreamscape, this world was like heaven. As he approached the steel walls, he saw the face of the statue that was erected at the city gate. As he looked at it, Feng Qi's expression became more and more confused. He realized that the person on the statue was actually himself. F***CK, brother, you're awesome. Someone actually made a statue of you. F***CK, why isn't mine here? Ignoring the narration, he walked closer to the statue and observed it carefully. The statue was more than 10 meters tall, and he had a determined expression on the statue. He held a book in his left hand and a sword in his right hand, pointing to the west. There were a few lines of words carved below. Feng Qi, the great man statue. The statue was made by extracting the energy from the rune crystals in the bodies of the domain creatures killed in the war, and it weighed 1,800 tons. A book and a sword, invading my home, though far away, must be destroyed. Wow, what the F***CK, is this so cool? Where's the statue of my narrator? Haven't I done anything to save the world? Why is there no statue of me? F***CK. Ignoring the narrator's roar, he felt warmth in his heart. It seemed that the effort he had put into this future timeline had finally been made known to the world. Judging from this point of view, he must have obtained considerable achievements in the future line of the Resistance Science and Technology Research Institute. It was even possible that the Research Institute would be completely uprooted, thus leading the rise of mankind. Perhaps the me in this future timeline has already lived for several hundred years. E2A, really? I don't believe it. I'll prove it to you. Thinking of this, he immediately walked into the Steel City. At this moment, the sound of wind breaking could be heard. Sensing the danger, he immediately took a big step back. He saw a black spear coming from the top, right, stabbing into the ground where he had been standing. The spear was half buried in the ground, and the end was still trembling. Looking up, he saw a man wearing the uniform of Star City's garrison standing on the steel wall, looking at him with a cold expression. Seeing this, Feng Qi was about to explain when he suddenly remembered something. Currently, he was still in the form of a zombie. No matter how he looked at it, he looked like a territory creature. His attack was obviously related to this. At this moment, 3 figures jumped down from behind the steel wall, one after another. The leader was the man who had thrown the spear. Why is a territory creature here? Looking at Feng Qi, the leader was slightly puzzled. Then, he turned to his burly companion, who was more than 2 meters tall, and said, "Xiao Meng, kill him. Bring the body back to the shelter and hand it over to the researchers." The burly man called Xiao Meng nodded immediately, then walked toward Feng Qi. Feng Qi was speechless. Realizing that he was really being treated as a territory creature, he immediately said, "Wait, a territory creature?" Hearing Feng Qi speak, the 3 of them were shocked. Obviously, they thought he was an intelligent territory creature. Then, the 3 of them took a step forward at the same time, their expressions becoming alert. It was obvious that they were going to attack together. "Don't attack, let me explain. What are you trying to say?" the leader asked in a deep voice. Faced with the question, Feng Qi had mixed feelings. This was because he realized that he couldn't explain it all. Could he point to his statue and tell them that he was actually Feng Qi? Who would believe that? Try it. What if you believe it? Feng Qi was speechless. Taking a deep breath, he took a step back and maintained a distance from the 3 garrison soldiers. Then he said in a calm tone, he then said calmly, "If I say that I'm human and became like this because of some accident, would you believe me?" When the leader heard this, he carefully sized up Feng Qi. At this moment, Feng Qi's appearance was that of a skeleton. They could clearly see the shriveled and rotting organs in his body. Then, the leader said expressionlessly, "You think we humans are stupid, don't you?" The burly man standing beside him also said disdainfully, "Believe me. Then, tell me your resident number. I'll verify it on the spot." As he spoke, the man raised his right hand and tapped on the metal aperture on his wrist, projecting a light projection that could be keyed in. Faced with the questioning, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He came from 1,500 years ago. How could he have a verified resident number of Star City Sanctuary? While feeling helpless, he could only grit his teeth and explain, "Listen to my explanation. I came from 1,500 years ago. I transmigrated. You must believe me. Let me enter the sanctuary first. Next, I'll prove to you that I'm really human. We might believe you if you say that you came from 1,500 years in the future. After all, you could say that time machines were invented. The domain transcendental creatures nowadays are really unscrupulous in order to infiltrate the sanctuary. You came from 1,500 years ago? Why don't you say that you're Feng Qi from 1,500 years ago and that you transmigrated to lead us to fight against the domain invasion?" The leader said disdainfully. Feng Qi was speechless. After a few seconds of silence, he nodded vigorously. "To be honest, I'm Feng Qi from 1,500 years ago. Insulting a great man, die." Hearing Feng Qi's answer, the leader's eyes suddenly turned cold. He reached out and pulled out the black spear that was inserted into the ground. Accompanied by the sharp sound of the wind, the spear suddenly pierced toward him. "Ha ha! How do you prove that you failed? In my opinion, you're just a living dead. What does that have to do with Feng Qi?" Hearing the narrator's sarcasm, Feng Qi wailed in his heart. Facing the incoming spear, he used his telekinesis to form an invisible barrier in front of him. But what he didn't expect was that the spear's speed was only slowed down. It easily broke through the telekinesis barrier and continued to stab toward him. Realizing that he was no match for them, he immediately turned and ran. In a situation where he couldn't convince the 3 of them, running away was obviously the best choice. Only by staying alive could he think of a long-term plan. Seeing that Feng Qi was running away, the other 2 guards immediately jumped a few meters high from the ground. The burly man's psionic axe smashed toward him with the force of Mount Tai. In the face of a life-and-death crisis, he didn't hesitate and immediately activated his blood source ability. His heart suddenly beat faster, and the blood force stored inside quickly gushed out and wrapped him up. His body quickly grew taller under the rich blood force. Strong muscles grew all over his body, and in the blink of an eye, he turned into a 2-meter-tall muscle monster. After wrapping his right fist with his telekinesis, he turned around and punched the psionic axe hard. Boom! Feng Chi's body was lowered, and half of his calf was smashed into the ground. The strength of the giant axe made it difficult for him to hold on, and it also made him realize that he was no match for the burly man. After pushing the giant axe away with both arms, he quickly jumped from the ground and then used his telekinesis to push his body forward, dodging the black spear that was flying straight toward him. As soon as his feet touched the ground, he started running without looking back. The remaining telekinesis in his body was completely released at this moment, pushing his body forward at an extremely fast speed. With every step, he could fly more than 20 meters in the air. It was as if he was free from the restraint of gravity. However, even so, the 3 guards of the shelter still didn't give up the chase. Looking back at the 3 people who were chasing him, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. Every time he entered the dream of the future, he would think about how he might die. Killed by Xiaohei, killed by domain creatures. The only thing he didn't expect was that he would be killed by humans. Facing the 3 people who were chasing him, he felt helpless and could only speed up his escape. From afar, he could still hear the leader of the guard shouting, "Xiao Meng, contact the shelter and ask for backup. Don't let this domain transcendent creature escape, or there will be endless trouble." Haha, as the savior, I'm being chased by my own human. How should I explain this? Waiting online urgent. Shut up. How can you laugh at such a sad thing? Are you unhappy that you got off work early? Are you unhappy that you got off school early and have a holiday? Deepte. As he ran, he was getting closer and closer to the domain world covered by the blood moon. The 3 people behind him were still chasing him, and at the same time, several unmanned aircraft carrying missiles appeared in the sky behind them, chasing after him at an extremely fast speed. Pay attention to the situation. There are combat drones behind you. Perhaps the missiles have already locked onto you. Get ready to get off work early. Shut up. As he roared, he leaped up again, and the remaining psychic power in his body instantly exploded into a thrust, sending him into the domain world of the blood moon. At the same time, 3 missiles with long tails of flame came at him at an extremely fast speed, piercing into the domain world of the blood moon and exploding beside him. Boom! Flames rose, and Feng Chi was sent flying by this force. His body tumbled in the air, and finally, he crashed heavily into a bare tree, breaking it in half. Lying on the ground, he felt a burning pain all over his body. The body formed by chi and blood quickly collapsed under the licking of the flames, turning into a thin mist of blood and dissipating. This took away half of his life. Not only was his blood source state dispelled, but his bones were also full of cracks, and he could no longer stand up. Danger eliminated, the drones didn't fly into the domain world. It should be that the rules of the domain world are not compatible with technological products. Of course, this is just my guess. After listening to the narrator's explanation, Feng Chi felt sad. Maybe you have to find a way to make yourself like a normal person. In fact, a disabled person is also fine, but you have to at least be like a human to be able to enter the Star City Sanctuary. Why don't you just die? And when you go back, give up on the future line of fighting against the Science and Technology Research Institute. First, find a way to turn back into a human in the collapsed world. After the bloodline evolution points reach 1,000 points, can I turn back into a human? Maybe, but not necessarily. After listening to the narrator's answer, Feng Chi decided to recover first, then hunt for domain creatures, and find a way to accumulate enough bloodline evolution points to complete an evolution. At this moment, the regeneration ability and the recovery ability given by the title Very Strong were activated. The cracks on his bones began to slowly heal. However, before he recovered, he could only lie on the ground and stare at the blood moon in a daze, and then sulk under the ridicule of the narrator. Chapter 141. Time slowly passed. Under the support of his innate ability, Feng Qi's injuries quickly healed. The cracks on his bones gradually healed, and his broken ribs also began to return to their original positions. Lying on the ground and looking at the hazy blood moon, he began to think about something. In this timeline, he had become a great person in history. Why did no one know that he would return in the future? Even if he died young and did not leave any information, the Scarlet Institute should have passed down the news of his return 1,500 years later. However, the Star City garrison soldiers clearly did not know about this. Since he could not access the database and check his email, he did not know the answer. While thinking, he came up with two guesses. First, the Scarlet Institute was destroyed in the conflict with the Research Institute. Even if they left behind some information, it was gradually lost and sealed away as time passed, so it did not attract the attention of the people of the future. Second, the Scarlet Institute thought that the future he came to was still a world that had been eroded by domains. Humans had already died out, so they did not leave any information to verify his identity. After all, every time he transmigrated, he would arrive at the end of human civilization. Even he did not expect the future dream to have such a huge change. Therefore, it was understandable that they did not think of this. Other than these two guesses, there might be other reasons. However, the problem was that he had no way to prove that he was Feng Qi. There were two choices in front of him. The first was to give up on this timeline and rearrange the future when he returned to the real world. In particular, he had to leave behind an important message and tell the people of the future that he would return 1,500 years later. This way, he would be able to enter the Star City Sanctuary without any hindrance by going against the Research Institute's future timeline. Other than rearranging the future when he returned to the real world, he could only hope that his bloodline evolution points would reach 1,000. His current bloodline evolution points were 852-1000. After killing 3 domain creatures, he would be able to start his bloodline evolution. At that time, something unexpected might happen to him, and he might become a human again. There's also the possibility of becoming a ferocious-looking monster with arms as thick as the tree next to you. With a green face and fangs, it could scare the children next door for 3 days and 3 nights. Feng Qi was speechless. "Can't you say something nice?" he said in annoyance. "Let me give you a heads up. The higher your expectations, the greater your disappointment. Are you sure that you will evolve into a human? Why can't it be a monster?" "Hite, stinky idiot. Who did you learn how to spit? So disgusting." "I learned it from the idiot." After the daily bickering, Feng Qi's injuries were almost healed. He slowly bent over and stood up, stretching his body. Suddenly, the sound of bones dislocating rang out, causing him to grimace in pain. Looking in the direction of the Star City Sanctuary and the statues standing in front of the steel walls, he felt a little comforted. Although he had been chased all the way by a domain creature and was almost blown to death, at least he had finally seen some hope after working hard for so long. He believed that as long as he continued to work hard, one day he would be able to see the brilliant golden age of his dreams. He, who had always been optimistic, grinned and walked towards the depths of the domain world. This was the first time he had traveled west since entering the dreamland of the future. Fortunately, the strange fog had not spread here. Otherwise, he felt that no matter how many lives he had, it would not be enough to kill him. The road ahead was not much different from the real world, except that his vision was a little dim. It was just that the plants along the way had withered, and it was dead silent. He had already adapted to such an environment and did not feel much of a fluctuation in his heart. Along the way, he did not encounter any domain creatures, but there was always a group of domain creatures that looked like crows flying around him in the sky, occasionally making noisy calls. He could not reach these domain creatures, so he could only give up. Without the blood source ability, he felt that it was very difficult to hunt domain creatures with just his telekinesis. But he still wanted to try. This life was too valuable, and giving it up was not in his character. He appeared to be very vigilant as he moved forward, always on guard against a sneak attack by domain creatures hiding in the dark. However, after searching for a while, he still could not find any traces of domain creatures, which made him a little confused. Narrator, come out and search for the domain creatures nearby, and pick the weakest one for me. You were so arrogant, I thought you want to fight the strongest, but you actually want to pick the weakest one with such an arrogant tone? Trash. Get to work. This time, the narrator did not reply. A few seconds later, the narrator's voice sounded in his mind. There's a weak guy at 11 o'clock. Let's go and kill it. When Feng Qi heard this, he immediately walked in the direction of 11 o'clock. A moment later, he found the domain creature that the narrator was talking about beside a twisted tree. This domain creature looked very much like a hedgehog, or rather, a large hedgehog. Its back and sides were full of thorns, and its limbs were short. At this moment, it was digging a hole. As if it sensed something, it suddenly turned around and looked at Feng Qi. Then, the thorns on its back stood up like hair, and a low roar came from its throat as if it was warning him. Feng Qi did not waste any time. He waved his hand and grabbed forward. His telekinesis immediately came out of his body and wrapped around the domain creature's surface, violently flipping it to the ground. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he took a step forward and threw a heavy punch at the domain creature's face. When his fist came into contact with its soft fur, part of the impact was offset, but it still landed solidly on the domain creature's face. This punch caused it to roll a few times on the ground. Seeing that his attack was effective, a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. If he had activated his blood essence, he would have been able to easily tear this domain creature in half and kill it in one move. However, in his normal state, his combat strength was greatly weakened. He felt that being able to cause damage to it was already a very good performance. Before he could attack again, the domain creature that had fallen not far away suddenly jumped up and aimed its back at him. Its body swayed, and the thorns on its back suddenly shot toward him like sharp swords. Fortunately, he reacted in time. He released his telekinesis and swept it forward. Under the obstruction of his telekinesis, these thorns finally stopped about a meter away from him in the air. With a wave of his hand, his telekinesis grabbed the thorns and flew back, stabbing them into the domain creature's back. Under his shocked expression, this domain creature actually jumped more than 2 meters high on the spot and let out a sharp cry. Ha ha, this one is weak enough. I like it. Realizing that he still had the upper hand against this domain creature, he couldn't help but laugh. Embarrassing. Ignoring the sarcasm of the narrator, he began to control his telekinesis to fight with this domain creature. During this time, he used his telekinesis to flip this domain creature to the ground from time to time. Then, he rushed up and punched it in the face. The combination of telekinesis and heavy punches saved the consumption of his spiritual power. When this domain creature chose to shake its back to release the thorns, he would also use his telekinesis to insert the thorns back. If this domain creature charged at him angrily, he would decisively retreat and run. At the same time, he would use his telekinesis to limit its running speed. In the battle with it, Feng Qi understood a principle. The art of fighting was to pull. Oh, not a bad idea. Then why don't you try pulling with Xiaohe? Then Xiaohe should come out. This future line took the path of the Confrontation Science and Technology Research Institute, so he felt that Xiaohe might not be chasing after him in this future dream. Perhaps Xiaohe would be killed in the cradle before it was even born. Young man, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Just you wait. I'll call Xiaohe right now and wait for it to come over. Then you can show me the art of pulling. Ignoring the narrator's words, he used his telekinesis to flip the hedgehog-like domain creature to the ground again. Then he took 3 steps forward and punched its already bloody cheek with his right fist. After this punch, he decisively stepped back and maintained a distance. But what surprised him was that this domain creature did not move after taking this punch. Its short limbs were facing the sky, and it lay motionless on the ground. Seeing this, he did not let down his guard. He seriously suspected that this domain creature was pretending to be dead and was preparing to ambush him. If it was really dead, blood mist should appear on its body. In order to confirm his guess, he picked up a stone and threw it at the domain creature's face. One stone 2 stones, 5 stones. Amidst the continuous throwing, the domain creature suddenly let out a sharp cry and suddenly jumped up to pounce on him. "Ha ha! You're so angry," continued Paul. The narrator, who had been watching the battle, suddenly laughed out loud. Feng Qi, who was already prepared, quickly retreated at this moment. At the same time, he used his telekinesis to obstruct the domain creature's speed from chasing after him from time to time, trying to kill it with the least amount of mental energy. Although it had sharp claws and fangs, it could not touch him at all, so naturally, it was not a threat. After chasing for a while, it suddenly turned around and chose to escape. At this time, the resistance that prevented it from chasing after him became a pulling force, dragging it away from Feng Qi's artistic pulling. After spending more than 20 minutes, it finally exhausted its strength. When Feng Qi's fist slammed into its face again, the domain creature's body trembled and completely stopped moving. Then, a cloud of blood mist appeared from its body and drilled into Feng Qi's body. At this moment, his originally shriveled heart recovered some vitality. Summoning his status panel, he discovered that he had obtained a new ability. Thorn's LV1 Upgradable Prefix Title. 1% of physical contact damage received will be reflected back to the target. The specific strength depends on the user's vitality and the target's damage. Physical contact damage that exceeds the user's endurance will not be reflected back. After reading the description of the ability, Feng Qi realized that this time he had obtained a physical contact damage reflection skill. Applause, another good skill for the muscular man style. I feel that this skill has a lot of potential. In the future, as long as your vitality is strong enough, you can stand still and let the close combat domain creatures attack you. You will be able to reflect back to them. Chicken ribs, how can I just stand there and let the domain creatures bite me? My goal is to not be injured and still be able to kill the enemy. He could not help but roll his eyes. Killing this domain creature only gave him 38 bloodline evolution points. Now, his bloodline evolution points were 110 points away from leveling up. He planned to rest and recover his mental energy first, then let the narrator help him find weak domain creatures and continue to hunt. As long as Xiao He was not around, he would have enough time to become stronger. However, at this moment, he suddenly heard a loud noise coming from the sky. Turning his head to look in the direction of the sound, he discovered that the originally clear boundary between the two worlds had begun to distort violently. The domain world seemed to have accelerated its devouring of the real world. The blood moon also began to suppress the sun and tilt to the other side, giving him the illusion that the world was turning upside down. At the same time, he saw a large aircraft rising from the Star City sanctuary, seemingly observing the changes in the domain world. Good heavens, is the end of the world coming? Hearing the narrator's words, he could not help but feel nervous. He was not prepared to witness the destruction of human civilization with his own eyes. Chapter 142. This chapter is suitable for reading with the BGM Victory. Write a chapter to find the feeling, then listen to the music to get the feeling. Feng Qi did not expect the domain world to suddenly accelerate the speed at which it was devouring the real world. He thought that the collapse of the future world would take a long time, and he would have plenty of time to interact with the human survivors. Looking at the world dividing line that was eroding the real world, he was stunned and at a loss. The domain world quickly covered the direction of the sanctuary, and all the flowers and trees in its path withered. It was as if it had been corroded for a long time in an instant. The spacious road leading to Star City Sanctuary also began to crack and collapse under the pressure of the domain world. Seeing this scene, he felt a strong sense of helplessness. In the face of the suppression of the domain world, the power of an individual was particularly insignificant. He knew that he could not change anything at all. At this moment, the earth trembled. He looked back and saw billowing smoke emerging from the end of his vision. Countless ferocious and terrifying domain monsters attacked from all directions, as if they were going to follow the expansion of the domain world and devour the entire world. At the same time, countless dimensional space nodes appeared in the sky. Tentacles that tore through space appeared from within, and hoarse whispers emerged along with a thick fog. In the distance, a mountain-like figure in human form walked towards Star City's sanctuary with heavy steps. Roar! Like a thunderclap, the dark clouds were shaken away by the roar, revealing a ferocious beast face. Countless terrifying domain creatures appeared at this moment. Looking back in the direction of Star City's sanctuary, he saw the steel wall opening to both sides like a telescopic door. Warriors in rune armor walked out in a line. When the first team stopped in front of the steel wall, the following teams extended to both sides. A moment later, they lined up neatly in front of the steel wall, forming a defensive line of more than 10,000 people. They looked at the expanding domain world and prepared for battle. Seeing this scene, Feng Qi was anxious. There was obviously no chance of winning this battle. What they should do was to retreat to other safe human cities and consolidate their forces. Staying here to fight to the death was simply the most foolish thing to do. Thinking of this, he immediately stepped in the direction of Star City Shelter. At this moment, the steel wall in the direction of Star City Sanctuary was slowly closing, and the warriors raised their weapons. Mother Asterisker, are they stupid? Aren't they leaving a way out for themselves? While cursing in his heart, he urged his telekinesis to increase his running speed. However, his running speed was still incomparable to some of the domain creatures. A large number of domain creatures ignored his existence and rushed past him, following the domain. Moments later, the domain creatures at the very front came into contact with the human warriors at the very front of the camp, and a fierce battle began. The human warriors waved their weapons angrily. Along with the strange movement of natural energy, they harvested the domain creatures at the front as if they were chopping vegetables. The fighting power of the people of the future was far stronger than he had imagined. After 1,500 years of development, the future people's starting point was even higher than the modern people's, and they had a more complete cultivation system. Their faces were covered by their helmets, and only their eyes that were filled with killing intent could be seen. Sprinting all the way, Feng Qi finally approached the human defense line. At this time, he chose to stop because he knew that if he continued to move forward, he would be killed mercilessly like these domain creatures. Standing where he was and looking at the human warriors who were bathed in blood, he felt helpless. At this moment, countless slime fell from the sky. These slime quickly gathered into twisted life forms and attacked the human defense line from the side. Team 1. At this moment, a roar was heard from the human defense line. Immediately, a team of warriors at the back levitated into the air. Their hands quickly formed a series of seals, and then a whip made of lightning appeared out of thin air and lashed at the slime creatures. Upon contact with the lightning whip, the slime creatures' bodies were burned into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Team Mountain Shield, move forward. Create a safe space for the spellcaster team. Hearing the order, the warriors with heavy weapons and shields took a step forward, pushing forward against the crazy biting of the domain creatures. While he was shocked by the fighting power of the people of the future, Feng Qi still could not understand why they chose to fight to the death. Why did they not choose to retreat and look for a safer place for the humans? At this moment, a figure flew out from the human defense line and stopped about 100 meters above the ground. Then he closed his eyes. The spirit particles in the air seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and quickly gathered in the sky. Then, a golden light spot appeared in the sky. The specks of light quickly swam through the air, outlining a massive spell formation. Then, a raging flame spewed out from within. The domain creatures that came into contact with the flame were burned into ashes before they could even scream. Fortunately, Feng Qi was far enough away. Otherwise, he would not have been able to escape death. At this moment, the billowing heat wave came from the front. He could not help but take a few steps back. So powerful, they are one of the few survivors of the human race. They are also warriors who protect the shelter. How can they be weak if they can survive? Otherwise, the shelter would have been conquered by the domain creatures long ago. After hearing the narrator's answer, he nodded immediately. Roar! At this moment, a roar came from the sky. A domain creature with wings on its back swooped down from the sky. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at the figure in the sky who was still casting the spell. At this moment, the figure in the sky turned around and pushed his hands in the direction of the winged domain creature. Suddenly, the spell formation above his head turned around and spewed out toward the winged domain creature. The raging flames engulfed it. It immediately let out a shrill cry and fell from the sky. Seeing this scene, Feng Qi, who was sweating profusely, immediately clenched his fists in excitement. However, before he could be happy for a few seconds, a spatial vortex suddenly appeared in the sky. A giant hand formed by fog slammed onto the spellcaster. After the sneak attack, the giant hand of gray fog and the spatial node disappeared at the same time. This attack was too sudden. The spellcaster was obviously unprepared. He was hit until blood flowed out of his mouth and his body fell from the sky. After a dull thud, he fell into the encirclement of the domain creatures. Seeing this scene, Feng Qi roared and activated his blood source ability. He immediately rushed in that direction. The muscles all over his body grew rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he became more than 2 meters tall again. He rampaged all the way until he was near the spellcaster. Then, he saw a domain creature tearing at the runic armor on the spellcaster's body. Seeing this, Feng Qi immediately took a step forward and slammed into the domain creature's face, sending it flying several meters away. He bent down to help the heavily injured spellcaster up. He immediately said, "How are you? How are you? Can you still move?" "Cough, cough, you are." Seeing Feng Qi's ferocious appearance, the heavily injured man was very shocked. "I'm a human. Because of an accident, I became a domain creature. Bah, in short, I'm a human. I accidentally became like this. I won't explain. I'll think of a way to send you back." As he spoke, Feng Qi suddenly turned around and punched the domain creature that was pouncing toward him from the right rear. Then he picked up the spellcaster and squatted slightly. This move was a physical cultivation move he had learned from the future database. He used his body as a bow and unleashed extreme strength. His back slowly stretched backward like a cat's arch before it was ready to hunt. "Go!" As he roared, he suddenly unleashed all his strength and threw the spellcaster in the direction of the human's defense line. Then his psychic power seeped out of his body and turned into a pushing force that pushed the spellcaster in the air. However, his strength was still not enough. Before he could send the spellcaster to the human's defense line, the spellcaster's body began to fall. At this moment, a figure leaped up from the human's defense line and caught the spellcaster in the air before landing back inside the defense line. Yay! Seeing this, Feng Qi also clenched his fists tightly. Just as he was about to retreat and keep a distance from the human's defense line, another figure leaped up from the human's defense line and attacked him directly. This person was wearing black runic armor. He landed beside him at an extremely fast speed and grabbed his right arm. Then a huge force attacked him. He did not even have time to resist before he was dragged into the air and flew toward the human's defense line. When his body landed, a black spear was placed horizontally at his neck. "You said you're a human? Tell me your resident number." Feeling the chilling coldness from the black spear, he felt bitter. Another resident number. If he had one, he would have given it to him long ago instead of waiting until now. "I'm a human, but I don't have a resident number. Prove it. Otherwise, I'll treat you as a domain creature and kill you," the voice said coldly. Now that he said he was Feng Qi from 1,500 years ago, it was obvious that he would not be believed. Therefore, he quickly came up with an idea. "I'm a human who participated in the runic modification project. I left the city a long time ago." Hearing Feng Qi's answer, the spear-wielding figure was silent for a few seconds before he said, "My name is Chunimo. I'm the commander of the first battle team in Star City Sanctuary. I choose to believe your words for now, but I won't let you enter the sanctuary." Realizing that he was temporarily safe, he immediately asked, "Commander Chun, why did you leave the sanctuary? Captain Chinamo, why didn't you evacuate the shelter? Why did you choose to stay here and fight? Retreat? Retreat to where? Is Star City the last human sanctuary in this world?" Is there no space for other humans to live in? Faced with the question, Chan Imo shook his head and said, "We don't have the ability to cross the domain to other sanctuaries, and we don't know if there are other human sanctuaries. Even if there are no other sanctuaries, you can still retreat to the east with the residents in the sanctuary. How long can you last if you stay here and fight to the death? Retreat to where? The outcome won't change." Then, Chen Imo ignored him and walked toward the defense line. "I don't have time to deal with you now. Take care of yourself. The sanctuary has been sealed. No one can enter now. Last question. Why don't you choose to hide in the sanctuary together? Resources are limited, and we're warriors. Dying in battle is our destiny." Chinamo said in a slightly relaxed tone without turning his head. Then he tightened his grip on the spear in his hand. Then he jumped up and charged toward the incoming domain creatures. Hearing this, Feng Qi suddenly realized something. These warriors had cut off their escape route and were prepared to fight to the death. The reason was that the resources in the sanctuary were limited. If they wanted to maintain the resource cycle, they could not accommodate a large number of people. If the cycle collapsed, the result would be that none of the residents in the sanctuary would be spared. Shen Mo's words shocked him. At this time, the battle was still ongoing. With the appearance of powerful domain creatures, the human warriors could no longer deal with them as easily as before. Gradually, warriors fell, and then the warriors behind them took their place. They were wearing helmets, so he could not see their expressions. However, Feng Qi could feel the solemnity and heaviness. During this time, there were constantly injured people being dragged back to the rear. The medics performed emergency treatment, and then they were thrown back into the battle. At this moment, he could only watch helplessly. There was nothing he could do. Gradually, the number of casualties increased, and the pressure on the defense line increased. However, the human warriors still did not retreat. Some of them had their arms bitten off by the domain creatures, and some had their legs broken. However, they still stood at the forefront. Their bodies were like towering mountains, and they did not retreat. Feng Qi looked at all of this in a daze, and his fists gradually tightened. The future of humanity should not be like this. As time passed, more and more warriors fell into a pool of blood. The defense line of tens of thousands of people was gradually broken. Finally, the warriors surrounded the statue at the city gate and began the final battle with the domain creatures. During this time, there were warriors who died in battle to prevent the domain creatures from getting close to the statue. Is it necessary to protect this statue? Feng Qi muttered to himself. Yes, it is the dignity that we declare with our lives to protect. It is not erected here for decoration. At this moment, a voice came from the right, answering Feng Qi. Turning his head, he found that the person who answered him was the man on duty who had blocked his way earlier. At this moment, he was lying on the ground. He had lost his arms, and his eyes had turned grayish-white. It was as if he could no longer see. At this moment, he was staring blankly at the sky. Then he continued, "This statue has been recast 28 times. Every time we return from the battlefield, the rune crystals and the spoils of war will become a part of this statue after their energy is drained. It is the dignity of our warriors. Before we fall, it must not fall. Cough, cough, a book and a sword, although far away, will..." Before he could finish speaking, the man suddenly stopped moving. Dignity? As he muttered, Feng Qi's emotions surged. At this moment, he felt extremely depressed. Then, he resolutely ran to the defense line. Even if he was very weak at this moment, he had to fight alongside these human warriors until his death. As he ran, the nightmare ability was automatically activated. Fragments of memories of the dying warriors appeared in his mind. Countless voices intertwined in Feng Qi's mind. "Captain, can we obtain the final victory? I don't know, but we are not fighting because we think we can win. We are fighting because we must win. The future has become like this. We have let down the efforts of our ancestors. The only thing we can do is to continue fighting until the last drop of our blood is shed." Finally, all the images merged. In the image, they stood under the blue sky and white clouds. They clenched their fists and placed them on their temples. They looked at his statue and solemnly swore, "Eternal night is coming. We will remember. We will not strive for glory. Comrades of the same mind, we will be loyal to our duty. Life and death are at stake. Our hearts are at stake. We will not fear or retreat. We will sound the warning horn. We will guard against external attacks. We will forge a strong shield of steel. We will ensure the eternal prosperity of our human race. Today, we will stand tall and offer our lives. We will die without regrets. Human race immortal. Human race immortal." Fengqi also shouted at this moment. Soon after, shouts of prostration sounded. With bone-chilling hatred, he and the remaining human warriors launched a final charge against the domain creature. Chapter 143. The rain was heavy, and blood was dripping down his body. Looking back, he was the only one who was still standing there. The other human soldiers were already lying in a pool of blood. The domain creatures didn't attack him. After destroying his statue, they broke through the steel wall and continued to rush east. The outcome of this battle was already decided. He was just a participant and witness. He couldn't change anything. After losing his blood ability, he couldn't kill any of the domain creatures. He was fighting in vain. These domain creatures seemed to be controlled, and the mastermind behind them seems to have ordered them not to attack each other. Otherwise, you would have been killed. After listening to the narrator's analysis, he didn't answer. He also noticed this during the battle. The different domain creatures didn't attack each other. He wanted to die with the soldiers, but these controlled domain creatures didn't care about him at all. It was as if they were controlled by mental bewitchment. They would only move in the direction of the expansion of the domain. He turned to look in the direction of the Star City Sanctuary. At this time, the survivors in the city had already hidden underground and were safe. The mighty domain creatures crashed through the steel wall. After destroying all the buildings inside, they continued to advance east. Standing there, he thought of a question. If the resources in the sanctuary could ensure the survival of the residents in a stable population, why was the sanctuary empty when he traveled to the future? He didn't even find the remains of the dead survivors. Then he thought of the Scarlet Institute's sanctuary. The situation was very similar. The people living there suddenly disappeared mysteriously one day. They didn't even have time to tell him the reason for their disappearance. It was as if the people living in the shelter had suddenly disappeared. Turning his head to the west, a thick fog was sweeping in with the expansion of the domain. A whisper that could bewitch the mind faintly sounded in his ears. At this time, the fog suddenly accelerated. A blurry human face appeared in the fog. He looked at Fengqi in surprise. He seemed to be surprised that Fengqi wasn't under his control. Then a consciousness pierced into Fengqi's mind. A hoarse voice sounded in his consciousness. "Do you have intelligence?" Fengqi didn't answer. He picked up a battle axe and walked step by step towards the fog. F*CKU. No matter how strong his opponent was, he had no intention of taking a step back. At this moment, he only wanted to die here. "You're human?" A human who was transformed into a domain creature? No, what an interesting life form. Fengqi did not answer the question. Instead, he walked towards the fog with his axe in hand. At this moment, a giant hand appeared from the fog and grabbed at him. Then, it split into chains and entangled him, making him unable to move or even speak. He tried to struggle, but his strength was powerless against the fog. However, just as his body was about to be pulled into the fog, a silver spear pierced through the sky and firmly nailed itself in front of the fog. Suddenly, the spreading fog stopped spreading. The hoarse whispers also stopped. Then, the fog gathered into a pair of giant hands and slapped the silver spear. The silver spear's radiance flowed and trembled as it dispersed the gray fog. Just as the mist was about to launch another attack, a figure suddenly appeared before the spear. With a wave of his hand, the spear flew into his grasp. The one who had arrived was Murakami. She was wearing silver armor and pointing her spear at the fog. "You're going to die. Then you have to find where my real body is first. Besides, you can't even protect yourself now. The space node in the east is about to form." "Ha ha! You think you've won? I didn't win, but the humans have lost. No one can survive. As long as I'm here, the humans are here. That's just what you think. I'll let you watch a good show next. I've been preparing for this day for a long time. As soon as the life in the black fog finished speaking, Feng Qi suddenly heard a hurried whisper in his ear. It was like a demonic voice piercing his ears. This voice kept spreading and spreading. It was as if the whispers were reverberating between heaven and earth. Under Feng Qi and Murakami's incredulous gaze, human figures began to appear in the ruined city. They all walked out of the shelter on their own initiative. At this moment, their eyes were dull, as if they were being controlled by some kind of power. Watch carefully. As soon as the voice in the black fog finished speaking, the human survivors in the shelter suddenly burst into green flames and burned their bodies instantly. In the blink of an eye, the residents in the shelter became the walking dead. Clouds of blood mist emerged from their bodies and gathered in the air to form a blood cloud that quickly flowed into the fog. Die. Seeing this, Murakami stabbed the spear in her hand into the fog. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through and the fog was constantly pushed back. The silver light was like a scorching sun that corroded the fog. At this time, the hoarse voice sounded again in the fog. Murakami, do you know why you've lost? In fact, I've already planted the seed in the human civilization. Now that the seed has absorbed enough nutrients, it's time for the humans to perish. At this time, clouds of blood mist rushed in from all directions and merged into the fog. Not to mention tens of thousands. Even if it's hundreds of thousands, millions, or hundreds of millions, I can destroy them with a snap of my fingers. I prepared for this step for more than 1,000 years. I've already planted the seed, and the future of the human race has long been under my control. Just as Murakami was about to kill her way into the fog, starlight flashed in the eastern sky. Go quickly, the space node is about to be formed. You might still be in time. The hoarse laughter sounded in the fog. Hearing this, Murakami turned her head to the east, and her expression changed. Looking at the fog again, she said coldly, "Wang Jinsheng, wait for me to kill you." Then, her figure suddenly rose into the air, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the horizon. Hearing Murakami call the life form in the fog, Wang Jinsheng, Feng Qi's ears buzzed. How is this possible? At this time, the hoarse voice sounded in the fog. It's your turn. Become my collection. As soon as the voice fell, the fog drilled into his body and quickly swam, extinguishing his flame of life. When he opened his eyes, he had returned to reality. Impossible, absolutely impossible. It's just a name that's similar. He kept comforting himself. He knew better than anyone what kind of person Lao Wang was. He felt that anyone could betray humanity, except for Lao Wang. He even felt that Lao Wang was more suitable than him to be the savior of the world. If it was Lao Wang, he would definitely be able to do a better job than him. After 6 years of being together, Lao Wang was the lighthouse in his life. It molded his worldview and gave him a tenacious willpower. Lao Wang was the one who told him to believe in the future. Lao Wang was also the one who told him that humanity would win. So how could he be a territory creature? It must be a name that's similar. Agi, do you remember what Vivian said? All the geniuses of the new generation were assassinated. Only Lao Wang smoothly became a historical figure. Everything was too smooth, so it's very suspicious. Shut up, that's impossible. The faith in his heart was on the verge of collapse. He was unwilling to believe that the Wang Jinsheng that Murakami mentioned was Lao Wang. Agi, I didn't say that it must be Lao Wang. You're the one who's doubting him now. I didn't. The seed of disaster was planted more than 1,000 years ago. The person who could do this must be someone that the entire human race trusts. As a historical figure, Wang Jinsheng is very suspicious. Perhaps something that he came up with subtly influenced humanity. It's like implanting a switch that can be passed down through the bloodline. The moment it's switched on, the implanted life will be instantly controlled and become his nutrients. Hearing the narrator's answer, his emotions were on the verge of collapse. He had fallen time and time again, but this time, he couldn't take it anymore. No matter how cruel the enemy was, he wouldn't give up. No matter how difficult the road ahead was, he wouldn't give up. But this time, the faith in his heart was shaken. No, no. He kept muttering to himself. He pushed open the dormitory door and ran out. It was raining outside. He ran alone in the rain, and his emotions were on the verge of collapse. Agi, calm down. Feng Chi didn't listen to the narrator's persuasion. After falling in the rain, he stood up again and walked in a daze. Tears fell down along with the raindrops. At the end of the day, Feng Chi was just a 17-year-old boy. The grievances and depression in his heart were completely released at this moment. Unknowingly, he walked to the school gate. Seeing Feng Chi, the guard at the gate asked curiously, "Miss Feng, why don't you use an umbrella in the rain?" "I have." Feng Chi ignored his words and walked out of the school gate. At this moment, his heart was filled with confusion. The faith in his heart was on the verge of collapse. He would rather choose not to know all of this and continue to struggle and move forward in the midst of failure than to know such a cruel truth. At this moment, a taxi stopped in front of him. After the door opened, the driver shouted at him, "Young man, why don't you use an umbrella in the rain? Come in." Feng Chi didn't reply. He sat in the car blankly. "Where are we going?" "Anywhere. Find a place to drop me off." Hearing Feng Chi's answer, the driver was stunned. Then, he drove the car forward. "Young man, what happened to you?" "I lost my dream." Feng Chi answered blankly. At the same time, his tears fell uncontrollably. When the driver heard this, he immediately said, "Young man, I've been there." Feng Chi didn't listen to what he said. He looked at the raindrops that kept hitting the car window. At this moment, he was confused. It was like the sky was covered by dark clouds. There was no light. In fact, he also knew that there were many suspicious points about Wang Jinsheng. However, he still felt that it was just a coincidence. He was even more unwilling to suspect Lao Wang. Even though Vivian mentioned many doubts about Lao Wang, he didn't take it seriously. In his heart, Lao Wang was his savior. It was impossible for him to betray humanity. While thinking, Feng Chi's confusion intensified. He realized that the original determination in his heart was also shaken. At this moment, he only felt tired and wanted a rest. The car drove around aimlessly for more than an hour before finally stopping. "Get out of the car." When Feng Chi heard this, he took out his phone and wanted to pay the bill. However, he then realized that the car had stopped in front of Star City University. The driver said, "Young man, you can't lose your dream. If you feel tired, you can rest for a while. However, you can never give up on your dream." When he heard this, Feng Chi couldn't help but be stunned. He turned to look at the driver and realized that it was the driver who sent him to Star City University. "Young man, why are you looking at me like that? The salary I get from Star City High School is enough to support my family, but that tigress of mine is very strict with money. My salary must be handed over to her. So I came out to make money." Looking at the shocked Feng Chi, the driver grinned. "I won't charge you for this trip. All endings are new beginnings. The destination is also the starting point. Now, I'm sending you back to the starting point. Start again. The destination is also the starting point." When he heard this, he thought of his efforts, his peers at the Scarlet Institute, and his future self who chose to sacrifice himself for him. Every destination was a new beginning. Every failure would create a brand new future. At this moment, the flame in his heart that was almost extinguished was reignited. The driver pressed the button on the steering wheel, and the car door slowly opened. "Don't disturb me from making money. Hurry up and get out of the car. A student from Star City High School can't be embarrassed like this. Go back and continue to work hard." When Feng Chi heard this, he nodded and got out of the car. "Young man, enjoy the good things while you're still young. Remember what I told you. No matter how bad you are, you can't have a score of 0. That's it, bye." When the driver finished speaking, the car door automatically closed. The driver, who was driving slowly just now, revealed his true nature. He chose to eject and start speeding. During this time, he almost collided with the car. From afar, he could hear the driver cursing loudly as he rolled down the window. "This driver is really handsome." "Yeah." Feng Chi nodded. "Agi, don't give up. It's just a guess. I don't believe that Lao Wang would betray humanity. Maybe there's something else." "I know. I'll investigate. I was just feeling down just now. I'll feel better after venting." "Do you need to cry when you're feeling down?" I took a screenshot of the scene just now. I had to call you daddy a few times before I could delete it. I'm not crying. You won't admit it? Heat away. Rebound. Rebound your rebound. Rebound, ineffective. Stupid zombie, so childish. Stupid system. Chapter 144. Back in the dormitory, Feng Qi washed up and changed into a clean set of clothes. Then he sat at the desk and began to organize the information. Until now, he still didn't believe that Wang Jinsheng was a domain creature. If he was a domain creature, why did he return to Star City High School to teach? During this period, he also often wrote articles and published them on influential forums, which inspired and influenced many ambitious young people. Therefore, he believed that Lao Wang's starting point must be for the sake of humanity. He still clearly remembered what Lao Wang said in history class. It was also under the guidance of Lao Wang that he felt that he could face the truth of the doomsday when he entered the future dream and choose to stand up and be a savior. But as Vivian said, there were indeed too many suspicious points about Wang Jinsheng. As a great man of history, he had never been assassinated by a domain creature. His journey was too smooth. The voice in the black fog said that this was a foreshadowing he had laid down 1,000 years ago. This foreshadowing, perhaps as the narrator said, was a kind of switch implanted in the human bloodline. It was passed down from generation to generation and finally implanted in all human bodies. Then what could do this? The first thing he thought of was martial arts. Only extremely outstanding cultivation methods would be continuously promoted and disseminated, and eventually passed down from generation to generation. From this point of view, Lao Wang was indeed full of doubts. People in the future evaluated Lao Wang as a great man of history, and the research institute he was in was the Tiger Soul Institute, whose core research direction was martial arts. From this, it could be seen that Lao Wang should have developed a super martial arts that was enough to change the course of human civilization. Was there such a possibility that there was a problem with the super martial arts? Humans who practiced the super martial arts were equivalent to having a bloodline switch implanted in their bodies, and this switch would affect and be passed down to the next generation. Therefore, in the world of the future dream, the Lord of the Black Fog activated the switch and completed a long-planned harvest of human beings. Is there such a possibility that Lao Wang was used? It's also possible that he was controlled and possessed. Perhaps the creatures in the dark world used Lao Wang's influence to promote this super. At this point, he suddenly thought of Lin Ran. According to historical records, Lin Ran had once developed a cultivation method that caused the meridians of millions of people to break and die. This matter was full of doubts from the very beginning. Now, with the addition of Lao Wang, he couldn't help but suspect that there was something wrong with the Tiger Soul Institute. Let's assume that the Tiger Soul Institute is a dark force similar to the Research Institute. In that case, many questions could be answered from another angle. First, there was Lin Ran. Due to the fact that the techniques he created were too outstanding, the hidden forces that infiltrated the Tiger Soul Institute were extremely wary of Lin Ran. They were deeply afraid that his techniques could bring about rapid growth for humans. Therefore, they purposely modified part of the contents of the cultivation method during the test segment, causing a major problem with the cultivation method. In this way, Lin Ran would be the one to take the blame. It was equivalent to them using an effortless method to get rid of a hero who could promote the development of human cultivation. If one considered the problem from this perspective, it would explain why Lin Ran's cultivation method was fine when he cultivated it and tested it himself. In the end, there was a major problem when it was promoted. Next, there was Wang Jinsheng. As a historical figure, he must have developed many excellent cultivation methods before he developed the super cultivation method. In terms of influence, he was even stronger than Lin Ran. The Tiger Soul Institute used some method to control and use him. Then, they came up with a cultivation method similar to the bloodline switch. Moreover, this cultivation method could indeed bring about progress for humans, so a large number of humans cultivated it. In fact, the cultivation method hid the disaster that would destroy human civilization. The Lord of the Black Fog had long been prepared to use this to harvest all of humanity. From this point of view, everything seemed to make sense. Agi, do you remember Lepingen? What's wrong? Back then, you didn't understand why he joined Star City University. Now, it seems that the Science and Technology Research Institute wanted to infiltrate the Tiger Soul Institute. Hearing the narration, he was stunned. After learning that Lu Ping was a werewolf, he still had a question that he hadn't gotten an answer to. Why did the Science and Technology Research Institute want Lu Ping to join Star City University? At that time, he wasn't famous yet. Even the gymnastics cultivation method was still in the testing stage. The Science and Technology Research Institute couldn't have specially planted Lu Ping by his side. They must have other motives. It was only by chance that they discovered that he knew about the dark forces, which led to the subsequent series of werewolves. He had asked Lu Ping what he wanted to do after graduation. Lu Ping's answer was to join a cultivation research institute. Was there a possibility that the Science and Technology Research Institute had been planning to infiltrate the Cultivation Research Institute for a long time, and their target was most likely the Tiger Soul Institute? The Dark Forces wanted Lu Ping to join Star City University because Star City University and the Tiger Soul Institute had a close relationship. As long as Lu Ping performed well in the university, he could be recommended to enter the Tiger Soul Institute. Lao Wang, who was recommended to enter the Tiger Soul Institute, also graduated from Star City University. The answer to this question seemed to be getting clearer. Thinking of this, Lu Ping, who had a desk full of cultivation books and diligently studied cultivation knowledge, appeared in his mind. Was all this just to infiltrate the Tiger Soul Institute? It's possible. In the future, which you don't understand, the Tiger Soul Institute was eventually controlled by the dark forces behind the Science and Technology Research Institute. Hearing this, Feng Qi was about to nod. However, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He recalled something the Lord of Black Fog had said to Murakami. He said, "I didn't win, but humans have already lost. No one can survive." To him, the first 3 words of this sentence seemed to have an additional meaning. Aside, do you think there's a possibility that the forces controlling the Tiger Soul Institute and the domain forces controlling the Science and Technology Research Institute are different? The Science and Technology Research Institute wants to infiltrate the Tiger Soul Institute purely to infiltrate the enemy's core area and obtain information for themselves. It's completely possible. Domain creatures are clearly divided into factions. While they fight against humans, they're also playing games with each other. That's why the Lord of Black Fog said that he didn't win, but humans have already lost. Thinking of this, Feng Qi felt a headache coming on. He originally thought that this was a fight between humans and domain creatures, but from the current clues, it was very likely that there were many dark forces involved. These forces were also playing games with each other. This time, in the future dream, Murakami let the Lord of Black Fog off and headed east. Perhaps it was to deal with the expansion of another domain force. This is too much of a headache. I'm about to go bald. Ignoring the voiceover's complaints, Feng Qi opened his notebook and began to write. A moment later, 2 lines of speculation appeared on the notebook. Science and Technology Research Institute, confirmed as a domain force known historical impact. Destroy the Scarlet Institute. Create psionic nano-worms. Xiaohei. Tiger Soul Institute. Speculation. It might be controlled by a domain force that has infiltrated the Science and Technology Research Institute. Speculation 2. It might be controlled by another domain force. The Science and Technology Research Institute sent Lu Ping in to infiltrate the enemy's rear and prepare for a future game. Speculation 3. The problem only lies with Lao Wang. There's nothing wrong with the Tiger Soul Institute. Putting down his pen, he fell in a deep thought. These speculations were all inferred from the existing information. They might not be the truth. But if it was the truth, then there might be more than one domain force hidden in human civilization. While they were playing games with each other, they were constantly eroding the development of human civilization. When human civilization was completely destroyed, it would be their turn to fight for the entire world. That was what the Lord of Black Fog said. Humans had already lost, but it had not won. If this was the truth, then there was one problem that could be explained. Why did the Science and Technology Research Institute not choose to destroy the Scarlet Institute and even the human civilization when they clearly had the power to easily destroy it? because they were also afraid of the other domain forces in the dark. They had the power to destroy human civilization, but they did not have the power to completely win the game with other forces. The Science and Technology Research Institute might even be looking for other domain forces that had infiltrated human civilization. Thinking of this, a new doubt appeared in his mind. Since the real world was the real battlefield and had been infiltrated by various domain forces, then what was the path to heaven? The enemy had already infiltrated human civilization. Why did those disappeared powerhouses still go to the path to heaven? Shouldn't they choose to stay and fight with humans or carry out a cleansing operation? Voiceover, come out and analyze the situation for me. Ding. The system has crashed from thinking. It is unable to answer any questions. After a moment of silence, he felt that there were only two people who could answer this question. One was Murakami. The other was Liu Yu. If he wanted to contact Murakami, it would not be easy. He would need to choose to join Lamin Kan's future line. But looking at the time, it was very likely that he would die young due to some accident and would not be able to wait until Lamin Kan was formed. This future line could be chosen, but it was risky. As for Liu Yu, what he was puzzled about was why he had never left Liu Yu in the future to explain the path to heaven. Could it be that even if they trusted each other, the secret of the path to heaven still could not be revealed? If he wanted to find Liu Yu to ask for the answer, he obviously would not tell him. After all, they were not very close, so he had to find out the answer from the future line. Other than that, there was another unanswered question. Why was Xiao He able to accurately locate and kill him? Logically speaking, he should have been erased from the timeline. When Xiao He was born, he did not know how many years he had been dead. How could he be hunted down? In the last future dream, Xiao He did not appear. He had two guesses about this. First, he was already dead before Xiao He arrived at his location. Second, the future line of the Resistance Research Institute caused Xiao He to die before he was born. That was why Xiao He did not appear. While thinking, Feng Qi continued to record his thoughts in his notebook and organize the information. He found that after returning from the future dream, there seemed to be even more unanswered questions. Originally, after confirming that the Research Institute was a dark force that infiltrated human civilization, he thought that as long as he removed the Research Institute, human civilization would enter a period of rapid development. As long as he continued to copy future techniques and bring them back to reality, human civilization would be able to usher in the final victory. But from the new information he had obtained, the road to saving the world was still full of thorns. He still had a long way to go, and there were many unsolved mysteries that he needed to find the answers to. After closing the notebook, he took a deep breath. Damn it. Chapter 145. Star City University, Dormitory 301. After lunch, Feng Qi returned to his dormitory and sat in front of his desk. He began to think about the direction of the next timeline. He opened his notebook and began to plan for the future. This time, he gave up on the future timeline of the Resistance Science and Technology Research Institute. He felt that before solving the problem of the blood switch, even if the Resistance Science and Technology Research Institute could change the future, it still couldn't solve the end of human civilization's destruction. Even if he destroyed the Resistance Science and Technology Research Institute in this future timeline, led human civilization to rise rapidly, and caused the population of Star City to reach millions in 1,500 years, it would still be useless. Just as the Lord of the Mist said, the foreshadowing he laid down would be useless no matter how many humans there were. As long as he activated the blood switch, everyone would become his nutrients. Therefore, before the internal problems were solved, promoting the development of human civilization would become secondary. Only by solving the problem at the source could human civilization develop healthily without any worries. How to choose a new future timeline was especially important. At this moment, telekinesis flowed out of his body. He grabbed the pen on the table and began to write in his notebook. A moment later, there were two options for the future timeline on the notebook. Future Timeline 1. Directly tell Lao Wang about his future situation and use Lao Wang's changes to change the future. Note: if Lao Wang is really the Lord of the Mist, then choosing to reveal all of your cards to Lao Wang will most likely lead to an early death. However, after being exposed, you can also use this to investigate whether Lao Wang is the Lord of the Mist. Advantage 2. If he doesn't die early, it means that Lao Wang was normal before he joined the Tiger Soul Institute. The probability of problems in the Tiger Soul Institute is greatly increased. Next, Lao Wang can become my insider in the Tiger Soul Institute and bring me key information. This is equivalent to inserting a spy into the Tiger Soul Institute. Note, during this period, you can also choose to cooperate with the Scarlet Institute and use the Scarlet Institute's influence to investigate the Tiger Soul Institute situation. I need to make use of all the known resources to explore the unknown information in the future instead of choosing to develop in a single direction. In the future, the second option was to live on and wait for the right time to follow Mu Qing to form the Dawn Rebels and come into contact with Murakami. Advantage: if I can survive until Dawn Rebels are formed, I will obtain a lot of useful information. I can even obtain the method to contact Murakami in the real world. This way, Murakami and the Scarlet Institute will be my companions in the future. Weakness: even if you choose to live in seclusion, you can't rule out the possibility of dying young due to some kind of accident, resulting in nothing. Feng Qi fell into deep thought about how to choose between these two future lines. The second future timeline was extremely risky, but so were the rewards. He suspected that Murakami knew the truth of all the secrets. As long as he could come into contact with Murakami, many of his questions would be answered. However, when he looked through the historical information, the longest recorded lifespan was only 34 years old. By the time Murakami found Mu Qing to form the Lumin Can, he would have been dead for God knows how many years. It was very likely that he would have come out empty-handed. After thinking about it, he decided to choose the first future timeline. He would come into contact with Lao Wang and to try to understand the Tiger Soul Institute, as well as Lao Wang's own secrets. During this time, he could also cooperate with the Scarlet Institute in various aspects and investigate the Tiger Soul Institute. After making his decision, he opened a shopping website and spent $25 million to buy the ingredients to brew the heart wine. Next, he only needed to wait for the ingredients to arrive. Then, he would brew the heart wine to replenish his progress bar and enter the future dream. He looked at the date at the bottom right corner, stood up, stretched his body, and left the dormitory. It was already evening outside. The twilight was dim, and the setting sun was like blood. The sky was dyed red by the afterglow of the setting sun. He walked along the lake in front of the dormitory and walked towards the academy's main gate. Along the way, he would greet the students who greeted him with a smile and a nod. After walking out of the academy's main gate, he took out his phone and called for a taxi. Then, he headed straight to his destination. Next, it was time to hunt. In the suburbs of Star City, Qingfeng Tea House. The decorations here were very ancient. There was no modern equipment in the tea house. There were only square tables and wooden stools. There were also wooden signs with the names of various tea leaves on the walls. The tea house was built next to the Mirror Moon Lake. Customers could come here to enjoy the scenery while drinking tea. The lake water here was clear. The green lotus leaves set off the pink lotus flowers. Occasionally, a cool breeze would blow. It was very pleasant. At this time, 3 brats who had just finished school were sitting on the second floor of the tea house. They looked at the Mirror Moon Lake and sipped their tea. From time to time, they would reach out and put the snacks on the table into their mouths. "Boss, why do we come here? I don't like to drink tea." The bespectacled little boy looked at the leader who was sipping tea in confusion. "This is a good place. My dad likes to come here to drink tea, fish, and enjoy the lake scenery. This is the mature life of a high-level elite. You guys should learn from it." Hearing the leader's words, the bespectacled little boy and the chubby little boy nodded. Then, they frowned and took another sip of tea. At this time, the leader said in a deep voice, "Brothers, now is the time to talk about business. It's about the formation of the Destiny Organization. We all have the same idea. The reason why human society can't develop quickly is because of the unreasonable allocation of resources. As a result, a lot of resources are allocated to ordinary people who have done nothing in their lives. I think we should shoulder the responsibility given to us by the era and fight for the interests of the elite class. This is also to promote the development of human society. Fatty shook his head and said, "Boss, you're wrong. I went home and asked my dad. My dad said you're a stupid brat. He said that human development needs to be diversified. After all, elites are the minority and ordinary people are the majority. Therefore, if we want to promote the development of society, we need elites and ordinary people to stand together. We need to improve the overall ability of human civilization with the idea of the rich first driving the rich later. Only then can we achieve the progress of society as a whole. Your idea will only exacerbate the conflict between the ordinary people and the elites, and thus slow down the development of human civilization." Hearing Fatty's words, the leader slammed the table. "Fatty, your dad doesn't know shit. We're currently being suppressed by the domain. If it weren't for the domain's slow expansion, we would have been defeated long ago. Your dad's old ideas can only be applied to the world before the cataclysm. At that time, the harmonious development of society was the most important thing. But in this era, we need elites, or else human civilization will be in danger." Hearing the leader's words, the bespectacled little boy and Fatty's hesitation gradually disappeared. Finally, the two of them nodded vigorously. "Boss, we'll do as you say. We need to change the structure of society. Then, let's start formulating the development plan of the organization. I believe this day will be recorded in history, and the people of the future will remember our efforts." Hearing this, Fatty and the bespectacled boy were a little excited. Before the organization was officially established, the three brats began to discuss the future development plan of Destiny Society. "I think we should recruit students from the school who have the same idea and start developing our Destiny Society from the school." At this moment, Fatty was the first to speak. "I don't think this method is appropriate. I think you should all be sent to those irregular juvenile detention centers to receive electrotherapy." At this moment, a discordant voice sounded. The three brats were stunned. They turned around and saw Feng Chi standing at the side, listening to their discussion with a smile. The moment he saw Feng Chi, Fatty subconsciously stood up and covered his butt. Obviously, he was traumatized by the previous beating. "It's not good to fight here. Come out with me," Feng Chi said at this moment. The butterfly's big mouth was ready to strike at this moment. It wanted to stir up trouble in the river of time. "Who do you think you are? Do you really think we can't do anything to you? There's a security guard causing trouble." The leading boy was quick-witted. He knew that there were security guards in the tea house and immediately shouted. Hearing the shout, a security guard downstairs hurriedly went upstairs, then looked at Feng Chi with a serious expression and said, "Sir, what's the situation? He wants to cause trouble and try to use violence against us." After hearing the little boy's explanation, the security guard's expression changed. He looked at Feng Chi and said, "Please leave now. Please leave now. This is not the place for you to cause trouble." "Sorry, I have to deal with a few students," Feng Chi said as he took out his Star City University teacher certificate and handed it to the security guard. After receiving the certificate, the security guard was also stunned. These kids shouldn't be Star City University students, right? No, but there's something wrong with their minds. I need to educate them. Wait a moment. At this moment, the security guard took out his phone and logged into Star City University's official website. He clicked on the list of teachers and started a search. When he saw Feng Chi's profile picture at the end of the list and the Outstanding Contribution to Humanity Award in his resume, he was obviously stunned. Then he respectfully returned the certificate to Feng Chi and said with embarrassment, "Sorry to disturb you. Sorry for disturbing you. Please continue." After saying that, the security guard hurriedly went downstairs while the three kids were stunned. "It's your turn. Are you coming with me now, or do you want me to kick you down the stairs?" Facing Feng Chi's threat, the three kids were instantly terrified. They couldn't understand why this mysterious violent maniac would appear again and destroy the formation of Destiny Society. Moreover, they didn't doubt that if they didn't surrender now, this violent maniac would really kick them down the stairs. Thinking back to the last time when they were beaten up indiscriminately, their expressions were a little frightened. "Let's go," Feng Chi said again as he turned around and walked downstairs. The three kids didn't hesitate and immediately stood up and followed him obediently. Walking out of the tea house and arriving at the lakeside, Feng Chi picked up the boy in the lead and ruthlessly gave him a round of butterfly cereal palm on his butt. He didn't believe that if he couldn't beat these three kids, they would still be able to think about building Destiny Society. While the leading boy was being spanked, he was still very stubborn. His face was red, and he didn't make a sound. But under Feng Chi's continuous slaps, he finally couldn't hold on any longer. He burst into tears. Fatty and the glasses boy seemed to have seen what was going to happen to them, and their expressions were filled with fear. But for the sake of their brotherhood, they didn't choose to run away. Just as they thought, after the leading boy was beaten to tears, Feng Chi aimed the butterfly slaps at them. Although these three kids weren't the propagators of Destiny Society, they were the founders of Destiny Society. Without them, there wouldn't be a Destiny Society in the future. His lifespan was limited, and he couldn't stop the development of Destiny Society in the future. But he had the ability to stop things that happened in the same era. Therefore, he had to change these three kids. This could be considered as having removed a medium-sized stumbling block for the development of human civilization. In the end, the three kids couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. Feng Chi waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "I already told you that if there's a next time, I'll come again. Why didn't you believe me? I'll ask you one more time. Do you still want to build Destiny Society?" The three kids who had never been beaten since they were young immediately shook their heads and chose to admit defeat. They were terrified of Feng Chi from the bottom of their hearts. I hope you remember that elite is a title that ordinary people give to outstanding people. What they should do is to lead human civilization to grow together and not use the large amount of resources given by ordinary people to consolidate their position and oppress ordinary people. Your thinking was wrong from the beginning. Do you understand? The three kids nodded decisively again. I don't care if you heard me or not. If there's a next time, I'll appear again. If you want to challenge me again, I advise you to be mentally prepared. It won't be over so easily. We won't, Fatty said while sobbing. I hope so. I'll let you go this time. But if fate wills it, we'll meet again. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Chi grinned before he turned around and left. He planned to continue to look for information about Destiny Society in the future database. If there were any problems, then Butterfly's big mouth would not be merciful. At this time, the sun was setting in the west and the sky was dark. The street lights by the lake lit up one after another. His figure gradually faded away. Not long after Feng Chi left, the leading boy wiped his tears. He's just a stumbling block for us to build Destiny Society. We haven't lost yet. Hearing this, little Fatty, who was at the side, shivered. Boss, why don't we forget about it? This person is very evil. Changing the structure of human society is not something that can be done by us. Yes, a wise man knows better than a fight when the odds are against him. Why don't we forget about it? I think he'll appear again next time. We won't be able to hide no matter where we go. Hearing this, the leading boy could not help but shiver. Then, let's think about it for the time being. Let's go home first. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the three kids supported each other. Every few steps, they would grimace in pain. Thinking of Feng Chi's ferocious appearance when he beat them up, they could not help but cry. This day was destined to be unforgettable +2. In fact, until now, they still couldn't figure out how the mysterious violent maniac managed to find them again, even though they had already changed their location. Then, they were beaten up again without any explanation. The determination in the hearts of the three brats was finally shaken by the butterfly's flapping mouth. The change in their state of mind was like a drop of water in the river of time. It set off ripples and eventually formed a monstrous wave. It had a huge impact on the future. History had changed because of it. Chapter 146. The next morning, the Academy security personnel delivered the package to his dorm. Before he started brewing the sake wine, Feng Qi wrote down the steps in detail in his notebook. He looked at it a few times before he started. Compared to consuming the rune crystals directly, the sake wine could save him a lot of money. However, every failure required him to succeed 5 times to make up for it. If he failed again, it wouldn't be worth it. He repeated the steps from the last time. This time, he was very careful during the brewing process. He didn't make any mistakes. After about an hour of hard work, the soft tube on the side of the machine started to drip light blue liquid. A smile appeared on Feng Qi's face when he realized that he had successfully brewed it. After a while, he picked up the glass bottle and turned off the auxiliary medicine brewing machine. Before entering the future dream, he first cleaned the machine carefully to ensure that it wouldn't be affected by the remaining liquid the next time he brewed medicine. After doing all this, he sat on the sofa in the dorm and drank half a bottle of sake wine. As the wine entered his throat, he felt a piercing chill. Then his body started to heat up and his energy progress bar started to rise. Finally, the energy progress bar stopped at 136. 4%. While he was drunk, he laid on the sofa and closed his eyes to sleep. This timeline had nothing to do with the research institute. All the focus was on the Tiger Soul Institute, so he didn't know what would happen. As he was thinking, he felt sleepy. His consciousness started to fade, and his expression was peaceful. The blood moon hung high in the sky, and dark clouds hung low. This time, the future dream returned to the end of human civilization. As far as his eyes could see, it was all ruins and dead silence. In front of him was a mountain of bones, and he could hear the roars of the living dead from time to time. It added a terrifying atmosphere to this dark world. It's back again. He turned his head and looked to the west. It was still covered in fog. It was obvious that Lao Wang's future timeline didn't change the ending of human civilization. Then, a low roar interrupted his thoughts. Littlekin got up from the ground with difficulty. Just as it was about to roar and pounce at him, the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Then its body fell down. It performed a split on the spot for Feng Qi. Seeing this familiar scene, he wasn't as calm as before. He used to think that these undead were creatures that were born in the special environment of the domain. But in his previous dream, he got the answer. These undead were all once humans. After a moment of silence, he took a step forward and kicked Shao Kahn's head away. F***CK. I thought that you would be deeply moved and wouldn't lay your hands on these zombies in the future. I didn't expect you to kick me like that. I was caught off guard. They're no longer humans. They're just special life forms that have been corrupted by the power of the Lord of Mist, Feng Qi replied calmly. As he spoke, he walked toward the Star City sanctuary in his memory. After some searching, he found the location of the black metal tablet. After dripping his blood and passing the test, he stepped into the metal tunnel. A moment later, Feng Qi stood in front of the control panel of the Star City Sanctuary's database. After pressing the start button, the control panel trembled and the screen in front of it lit up. When the options panel appeared, he pulled down the menu and clicked on the search bar. Then, he entered his name. After filtering the time, gender, and other information, his details appeared on the screen. Feng Qi, human trader. Age, 32. Cause of death, Star City, first execution ground, decapitation date of death, September 4th, 2037. Lifetime achievements. Honor Star City University's S-Class Excellent Graduate canceled. S-Class Human Elite Medal canceled. Outstanding Contribution to Human Development Gold Award canceled. Research results. Gymnastics Training Version 2.0. Tiger Fist, Body Tempering Technique, Heaven and Earth Meditation, Soul Catcher, Creator of Human Spirit Concept. Participant of Cultivation System Version 3.78 Update. Limb Regrowth Technology, Biological Science. Comment. Feng Qi's life can be described as full of ups and downs. As Wang Jinxing's most valued student, he displayed unparalleled talent after graduating from Star City High School. During his days at Star City University, he would release a new cultivation technique every once in a while. What surprised people was that Feng Qi's series of cultivation techniques were very complete. They all passed the test perfectly and didn't need to be modified. At this stage, Feng Qi was fully deserving of the title of a proud son of the people. However, Feng Qi still took the wrong path in the end. He chose to wallow in the mire with the Scarlet Institute, which was controlled by a domain creature, in an attempt to destroy the development of human civilization. In the end, he suffered the tragic fate of being executed. This was undoubtedly a tragedy for mankind. If Feng Qi hadn't taken the wrong path, he would have become a great historical figure praised by future generations. Comment from the netizens, Zhou Jifei. After looking through history, I feel that Feng Qi's destructive power is too shocking. He actually affected the fate of many people. Especially when Feng Qi was executed, Mu Qing came. He then told Mu Qing that she must destroy the Tiger Soul Institute. A few years later, Mu Qing, who trained a large number of elite soldiers, really betrayed mankind and formed the Dawn Rebels to destroy the Tiger Soul Institute's base. I really don't understand why Mu Qing listened to him. Pang Guanhai, my brother Qi, he's ruthless and doesn't talk much. His last sentence made Mu Qing betray him. I even suspect that Mu Qing is mentally controlled by him. Why is she so obedient? Wu Huani, he's just a scum. You've also been brainwashed by a domain creature. You even called him Brother Qi. Are you crazy? The progress that Feng Qi brought to mankind was far less than the destruction he caused. Even the dark period that the Dawn Rebels created was caused by him. Let's spit on him. After reading the future people's evaluation of him, Feng Qi's face showed a helpless expression. He was already used to dying at a young age. He even guessed that he might end up as a human traitor, based on the information obtained from the previous timeline. With the destruction of the Scarlet Institute outside Twilight City, the Science and Technology Research Institute launched a series of targeted actions against the Scarlet Institute. In this future timeline, he gave up on fighting against the Science and Technology Research Institute. But the Science and Technology Research Institute obviously wouldn't let the Scarlet Institute go. Therefore, he who cooperated with the Scarlet Institute would inevitably be targeted. Plus, the Science and Technology Research Institute's influence in human society. It would be very easy to send him to the guillotine. What was more surprising was that before he died, he actually asked Mu Qing to destroy the Tiger Soul Institute. From this point, it was obvious that he obtained a lot of important information related to the Tiger Soul Institute and realized the danger that the Tiger Soul Institute posed to mankind. When he persuaded Mu Qing at the execution ground, it was because he wanted to change Mu Qing. At that time, he didn't know the reason why Mu Qing betrayed mankind. He thought that Mu Qing, who formed the Dawn Territory, was the closest to being kind, so he would rather sacrifice himself than let Mu Qing take him away. But this time, he knew that Mu Qing was doing the right thing, so he naturally didn't have any concerns. He must reveal important information to Mu Qing, whether she believed it or not. As for why he didn't let Mu Qing take him away in the future, that was the question. Logically speaking, after being taken away, it was equivalent to joining Mu Qing's camp. He only needed to wait for Mu Qing to form the Dawn Rebels. With Mu Qing's protection, the probability of dying young would be reduced. A guess appeared in his mind. In the future, he hoped to use Mu Qing's power to destroy the Tiger Soul Institute. But at that time, Mu Qing had just formed the Dawn Territory not long ago and didn't have the power to fight against all of mankind. Mu Qing was able to fight against all of mankind not only because of her own strength, but also because of the support of Murakami and other powerhouses. If he let Mu Qing take him away at the execution ground, it was equivalent to letting Mu Qing, who hadn't fully matured yet, become a traitor to mankind in advance. It was possible that Mu Qing would die prematurely. If he didn't let Mu Qing take him away, then after Mu Qing came into contact with Murakami, learned the truth, and formed the Dawn Rebels, she would start a series of actions against the Tiger Soul Institute. There was a chance that she could change the future. To protect Mu Qing and make it easier for her to grow? That's a reasonable explanation. The narrator agreed at this moment. But as for the specific truth, it was impossible to know the truth through speculation. With doubts, he closed the personal details page and entered his email address into the search bar. This time, other than his own message, there was also a message from Wei Wei in the email address. This made him very confused. Did he not give his email address to Lao Wang in the future? He opened the message box, and the relevant information appeared. 1. After you left, I lost the ability to travel to the future dream. I also lost my innate abilities like telekinesis. I have a guess about this. The abilities we obtained in the future dream are all single. After you left, they were taken away and can't be replicated on me. So, I plan to start cultivating again from today onwards. For, without Lu Pingyan, the werewolf, I will no longer be on guard against the students. I've decided to lead Lu Yu and the others to secretly form a force. If one day we find out the truth about the Tiger Soul Institute and find out that there is indeed a problem with the Tiger Soul Institute, then Lu Yu and the others will be an important force against the Tiger Soul Institute in the future. 8. Since this timeline of mine is bound to be sacrificed, there is no need to worry too much. Just watch me. I've decided to let Mo Fei out again and let him act as a spy for the Technology Research Institute. He will be used to investigate the Technology Research Institute. Although we know that the Technology Research Institute has been infiltrated by the domain, we know too little about the internal information of the Technology Research Institute. Although this timeline of mine won't fight against the Technology Research Institute, it is still very necessary to investigate more information. 12. Today, Mo Fei came out and told him a lot of things in his heart. He suddenly realized that it was a very happy thing to have someone talk to. I feel that the depression in my heart has lessened a lot. I suddenly feel a little sympathy for you, who has to carry a heavy burden because you don't even have someone to really talk to. To be safe, you can only keep everything in your heart. Don't envy me. You can't envy me. It's a good thing that you have a narrator to accompany you. Otherwise, I really think that one day you will have a mental breakdown. I usually hate narration, but when I don't see it anymore, I suddenly miss it. When you see this message, the narrator is also here. 13. Mo Fei was shocked when he confirmed that I really have the ability to travel through timelines and learn that the Technology Research Institute has been infiltrated by the domain. But he chose to believe it. It feels good to be with a brother. Some things don't need to be explained in detail. He understands me, and I understand him. At the graduation party, we promised each other that we will fight for the rise of mankind for the rest of our lives. 14. Mo Fei said that after he graduates and joins the Technology Research Institute, he will try his best to enter the core circle of the Technology Research Institute and find out the truth about Xiaohe. If possible, he will help me destroy the nanoworm plan and kill Xiaohe. If Little Black could really be killed, then in the future, you would be able to fly freely in the sky and swim freely in the sea. In the future, you would have the protection of suckers in your dreams, so you would be invincible. Thinking about it, I'm a little excited. I have tolerated Xiaohe for a long time. If I can't beat him, then I will find a way to kill him from the source. I suddenly thought of a movie. If you can't beat an enemy, then you will travel through time and kill him before he is born. It is quite similar to the 18. Lu Yu knows about the path to heaven. He will also be a breakthrough for me in the future. I plan to get along with him for a while, then directly ask him about the path to heaven and Murakami. I hope he can tell me the truth and stop playing riddles with me. The information about the path to heaven may be able to explain why the domain exists and why so many strong people in history disappeared. 22. I didn't influence Mu Qing's timeline. If I can confirm that there is a problem with the Tiger Soul Institute, she will be the sharp blade to break through the Tiger Soul Institute when Lu Min can is formed in the future. If I influence her now, then maybe no Lu Min can in the future. Letting her stay by my side is definitely a wrong decision. She needs to spread her wings and fly high. 23. As for Lin Ran's future timeline, I have decided to interfere. Today, I found Lin Ran and talked with him for a long time. I told him most of the information I know. Most importantly, I told him that the cultivation method he is researching in the future will break the meridians of millions of people. After learning all of this, Lin Ran's first thought was disbelief. He even said that I was tricking him into giving up on the cultivation method. Lin Ran's attitude toward my explanation was, I won't listen. I can produce a lot of evidence to prove that I am a transmigrator from the Scarlet Institute, but Lin Ran really can't explain it. I said that I copied the cultivation method from the future. Lin Ran didn't believe me. He firmly believed that I am a super genius. I said that I know the direction of your future. Lin Ran didn't believe me. He said that I am just tricking you. I said that the research institute is controlled by the domain. Lin Ran asked me to produce evidence. So I said, how do you want me to prove it? Lin Ran said, tell me the number of tonight's lottery. Pa, there is no solution. I have been looking for important information about the future, but I don't have the ability to predict the future, especially when it comes to something as unreliable as the lottery. It is not easy to prove to Lin Ran that I'm a transmigrator. Lin Ran, this stubborn donkey, thought that I was tricking him because I kept trying to persuade him to give up on the cultivation method. Since persuasion is useless, I decided to give him a reminder. I told him that even if he wants to research a cultivation method in the future, he must carefully compare the cultivation method he developed with the one he published. This is also a kind of precaution. 78. After waiting for so long, Lao Wang finally came to Star City University today. I didn't waste any time. I was ready to lay my cards on the table with Lao Wang and tell him everything I know. Perhaps this was the end of the email. After all, there was still the possibility that old Wang would kill me after I reveal my secret. If that is the case, even if he is the person we admire the most, we must not be soft-hearted. Think of a way to kill him. We must not let the bloodline switch appear in history. 79. Today I called Lao Wang to the dorm and we talked for the whole night. I told Lao Wang most of the information I know to test his reaction. It turns out that Lao Wang was completely shocked when he found out. But Lao Wang quickly accepted the fact that I can travel through time. He said that although I'm talented in cultivation, there is still a big gap between me and a real genius. My change is beyond his expectations. He even found it hard to believe. He already thought that something might have happened to me. After that, we decided to work together to investigate the Tiger Soul Institute. 93. Lao Wang originally wanted to study at Star City University for a while, but after talking with me, he decided to enter the Tiger Soul Institute early. I was a little surprised and asked him if he didn't need to consolidate his knowledge of cultivation. In the end, Lao Wang showed me the Tiger Soul Institute's newest acceptance letter and got full marks. Maybe this is what a real genius is like. Other people might not be able to get into the Tiger Soul Institute after working hard for their entire lives, but for Lao Wang, it's as easy as eating and drinking. The gap between people is just that big. As expected of you, Lao Wang. 103. Lao Wang left Star City University and went to work at the Tiger Soul Institute. I also decided to communicate with the Scarlet Institute and have the Scarlet Institute investigate the Tiger Soul Institute. Vivian, who received my call, thought that I was going to join the Scarlet Institute early and warmly welcomed me. I didn't say anything and decided to go to the Scarlet Institute first before telling them my secret. 105. Today I arrived at the Scarlet Institute and went through a series of physical examinations before entering the base. When I saw Vivian, I told her everything I knew. In order to prove that I can travel through time, I told her about the Scarlet Institute's Rune Cyborg project, the Reverse Osmosis project, and the secret between her and Murakami. The old woman believed me. Then the next step of the plan can be carried out smoothly. I'm going to go all out in this timeline. I plan to take action from every angle and collect as much information as possible before I die young. 109. Today, Lao Wang sent me a big message. He told me that the Tiger Soul Institute recently set up a research project called the Rune Energy Interference Project. The purpose of this project is to create an implantable energy source that can interfere with the normal operation of the rune crystals, causing the energy within the rune crystals to go berserk and lose control. At the time, I was a little confused and didn't understand why Lao Wang would give me this information. It seemed to be useless. But Lao Wang's words made me realize that this project wasn't as simple as it seemed. He said, the interference source in this project needs to be implanted in order to be effective. It's useless to use it against domain creatures. If you have the ability to implant a special interference source in a domain creature, you have the ability to kill it. Why bother? And those powerful domain creatures can't even break through their defenses, let alone implant a special interference source. So he guessed that the original intention of this project wasn't to target domain creatures. He thought about it all night and felt that the most likely target of this project was the rune nanoworms that the Research Institute wanted to create. After listening to Lao Wang's explanation, I suddenly thought of a possibility. Do you remember one of our guesses? Did the Research Institute let Lu Ping and join Star City University in order to infiltrate the Tiger Soul Institute? At the time, we thought that domain creatures weren't completely united and were secretly hostile towards each other. The domain creatures behind the Research Institute realized that the Tiger Soul Institute was also infiltrated by other domains, so they wanted to plant Lu Ping and his pawn to act as their spy. Then, on the other hand, did the Tiger Soul Institute know that the Research Institute was being controlled by other domains, so they also planted their own spies? There was an unsolved mystery in the information we knew. After Xiao He was created, he didn't seem to be controlled by the Research Institute. It was as if he went out of control and even destroyed the Research Institute and the future city where the Research Institute was located. This question made me very confused. The Research Institute spent a lot of effort to create Xiao He, but they couldn't control him. It was ridiculous. Did they not expect this in advance? But after listening to Lao Wang's analysis, I suddenly thought of a possibility. Was there such a possibility? The Tiger Soul Institute already knew that the Research Institute wanted to create a super weapon, the Soul Nanoworm, and had already infiltrated the Research Institute. So, they made preparations in advance and set up a project to deal with Xiao He, the Runic Energy Interference Project. Before Xiao He was created, they created the Runic Energy Interference Project. Then, through the core members of the Research Institute, they implanted the Runic Energy Interference Project into Xiao He's body. After Xiao He was successfully created and activated, Xiao He went completely out of control under the influence of the Runic Energy Interference Project. Then he destroyed the Research Institute and the entire future city. Of course, the above is all speculation. I can't guarantee that it's correct, but I feel that the reason the Research Institute lost control of Xiao He was most likely due to external interference. The Tiger Soul Institute's project was very suspicious. Perhaps the domain creatures were also fighting both openly and covertly. Otherwise, with their ability to easily infiltrate the core organizations of humanity, it would be very easy for them to destroy human civilization. It seems that you still have a long way to go. The more you know, the more you feel that there are still many challenges to face if you want to continue on the path of saving the world. The path is long and difficult, but you will reach it if you continue. I have confidence in you, and you have confidence in me. This message made Feng Qi understand one thing. He guessed that the Research Institute and the Tiger Soul Institute were controlled by different domain creatures. Now, there was a high chance that this guess was correct. In fact, Xiao He's loss of control was related to the Tiger Soul Institute's secret sabotage. There's still one question that can't be explained. Xiao He's loss of control is one thing, but how could he accurately locate and hunt you down in the future? After hearing the narrator's words, Feng Qi said helplessly, "The current information we have is only limited. Xiao He was born in the Research Institute. There's almost no other information about Xiao He, and there's no way to investigate. Don't worry, take your time. The truth will surface." Okay, puzzled, he continued to scroll through the rest of the email. Chapter 147. Through the messages left in his mailbox, Feng Qi realized that his future self had chosen to develop in multiple ways. What he was doing was far more than what he had planned. Other than Mu Qing, his future self wanted to influence the future from various angles and obtain historical information. Doing so would undoubtedly increase the risk, and there would be many uncertainties. But he understood why his future self wanted to do so. The moment he knew that he was going to be sacrificed, his future self no longer cared about life and death. He only wanted to obtain more information for himself. With doubts about history, he continued to read the contents of his mailbox. 121. Lao Wang's guess might be correct. The Technology Research Institute wanted to infiltrate the Tiger Soul Institute. And the Tiger Soul Institute might also be infiltrating the Technology Research Institute and sabotaging it at the critical moment before Xiao He was completed. I was thinking, can you choose a future path? You can join the Technology Research Institute or the Tiger Soul Institute. Then you can use the information you know to help one of the forces destroy the other. If you could really do that, the future would probably be different. At the same time, joining one of the forces will also give us a lot of internal information. 138. Today, Lao Wang published his first article in the Tiger Soul Institute. He wanted to redefine the cultivation system. The article caused a sensation as soon as it was published. He chose to continue to be excellent and lure the dark forces to appear and contact them to obtain information from me. Old Wang's new technique was released, and his first technique was rated 4 stars. As expected of my teacher, his excellence was enough to make him worthy of any praise. 236. Lao Wang's achievements were increasing. Just yesterday, he received the S-Class Elite Human Medal and the Outstanding Contribution Gold Medal. Today, Lao Wang contacted me. He realized that his body seemed to be in an accident. Every night when he dreamed, he would hear whispers in his mind. He said, if he didn't talk to me, he might think that he was under too much pressure. But now, he felt that he was being invaded by some consciousness. He was afraid that his memories would be read, so he decided to take some measures and develop a technique to strengthen his mind. It allowed him to resist the erosion of his mind and protect his memories from being read. He talked to Liu Yu for a long time today. I asked him about the heavenly path and Murakami. However, Liu Yu didn't tell me the truth. He said that before a miracle found me, it meant that I did not have the qualifications to obtain information about the heavenly path. Sure enough, the information about the heavenly path was related to Murakami. Her appearance was like an invitation to the heavenly path. Only then could he obtain detailed information about the heavenly path. F***CK. It looks like I won't be able to get through to Liu Yu. I'll have to think of another way to get in touch with Murakami. 282. Lao Wang's condition was not very good recently. He often had nightmares after he fell asleep, and occasionally he would be in a trance. He told me that the dark side had chosen him as the best candidate to spread the bloodline switch. They were already preparing to control his mind. However, Lao Wang also said that he had developed a special technique that could strengthen his mind to resist the erosion of external forces. However, there was a flaw in this technique. As soon as he lost control of his mind, he would instantly die. I knew that this flaw was deliberately created by Lao Wang. He clearly knew that if he was controlled and his memories were read, then all the secrets except his mailbox would no longer be secrets. 302. I had a video call with Lao Wang today. In the video, he looked very haggard. In just a few years, his hair had turned white. He was smiling in the video, but I knew that he was under a lot of pressure. 342. Recently, the Research Institute had launched an operation against the Scarlet Institute. I was also affected because I was very close to the Scarlet Institute. I had also helped the Scarlet Institute launch several biotechnology technologies. As expected, the me in this future line was too reckless. I hoped that the Research Institute would not focus on me. Otherwise, I might have to leave this beautiful world early. 352. Lao Wang's body was getting worse day by day. In his dreams, he would often see himself wrapped in fog, and a voice would constantly speak in his mind. If I guessed correctly, that voice was the Lord of the Fog. If he really took Lao Wang's body, then he would live on as Lao Wang. This was probably why Murakami called him Wang Jinsheng. The Lord of the Fog's true purpose was very clear. He wanted to use Lao Wang's influence to spread the bloodline switch. He wanted to let all of humanity cultivate a hidden super technique and only wait for the next wave of harvest. This was the foreshadowing that the Lord of the Fog had left behind 1,000 years ago. 378. Lao Wang was dead. It was not a homicide, but a suicide. Before he died, he sent me a video. Video attachment. After taking a deep breath, Feng Chi clicked on the attachment of the video in his email. The video was in a technique lab in the Tiger Soul Institute. Lao Wang was sitting in front of the lab table. At this time, Lao Wang was completely different from how he remembered. His sideburns were white, his hair was messy, and his sunken eye sockets made him look very tired and haggard. But he still looked at the camera and said with a smile, "Aji, I might not be able to hold on any longer. That consciousness is about to break through my mental defense." I was prepared for this, but what I didn't expect was that this consciousness is eating away at the mental restriction I set on myself. I thought that after it broke through my mental defense, the mental restriction I set on myself would immediately activate and cause me to die. But now this consciousness is eating away at my mental restriction. If it succeeds, then I will completely lose the ability to resist, and I will be able to read all of my memories. At this point, I only have one way to go. I won't be able to accompany you for the rest of the journey. It's already a fact that the Tiger Soul Research Institute has been infiltrated. I've investigated the core circle cultivation method researchers around me. Their consciousness is also being eaten away. They often experience absent-minded situations similar to mine. But with me here, they won't succeed. The initiative is still in my hands. Looking at Wang Jinsheng in the video, Fengqi already knew what he was going to do. At the end of the video, Wang Jinsheng looked at the camera with a smile. Aji, keep going. The future of mankind depends on you. 3:53. Lao Wang was gone. He was found dead in the lab the day after he sent me the video. I don't feel good about it. In the end, he took the initiative and didn't become the lord of the fog's puppet. He didn't compromise with his destiny either. 3:54. I'm drunk. In my dream, I was back in high school. I saw Lao Wang walking back and forth in the mottled light, writing on the blackboard with his slightly skinny hands. He explained knowledge to us and told us to always have confidence in the future. The sun shone through the gaps in the branches outside the window and cast spots of light on his body, but his figure became fainter and fainter. Like an ink painting soaked in water, it gradually became blurry. When I woke up, I couldn't help but cry. On the road to the glorious event, Lao Wang was forever left in the past. He was the savior in my heart. He was also worthy of the title of a great man in history. Teachers often have, but teachers don't. I was fortunate to be your student. I was fortunate to travel with you. Goodbye. 3:62. The Technology Research Institute is ready to attack me. In order to suppress the Scarlet Institute, they didn't forget about me. Today, I was interrogated by the law enforcement officers of the Star City Army. The next series of measures should be the same as the previous timelines. In the end, I will be labeled as a traitor to mankind and will be executed. My departure is imminent, but I don't feel the slightest bit of sadness. I have long been prepared for this day. I'm just unhappy that I didn't go further and provide you with more useful information. 3:63. The Technology Research Institute's attack on public opinion has begun. The public opinion is overwhelming, and it's unfavorable to me. They say that I'm controlled by a domain creature and that I might be a domain creature transformed into a human. I don't blame those who criticize me. Lies have blinded their eyes, but their anger towards me stems from their love for this world. I've already told Lu Yu what to do after my death. I hope that he will develop in secret and not expose himself. He will only wait until he is strong enough to destroy the Tiger Soul Institute. From the current information, the Tiger Soul Institute is hidden even deeper than the Technology Research Institute. It's even more dangerous. If the bloodline switch is born in the future, the extinction of mankind will be just a thought from the Lord of the Mist. 3:65. Tomorrow, I will go to the Star City Tribunal, but I know that this is just a formality. My fate has already been decided. I'm really sorry that I didn't provide you with much useful information in this future timeline. Next, I'll give an email to Vivian, and she will continue to provide you with future information. Suddenly, I feel a sense of relief. My moment of liberation is coming. As for you, you still have to continue to shoulder the dreams of your classmates. Lao Wang, Vivian, Mu Qing, everyone. Tired? Tired is the right thing to do. Comfort is reserved for dead people like me. Don't envy me, haha. The email message ended there. After reading the contents of the email, Fengqi couldn't help but sigh. He could imagine the changes in his state of mind before he died in the future. His heart would be filled with unspeakable pain. Especially Lao Wang's death, it would be a huge blow to him in the future. He was an orphan from a young age, and his values were shaped by Lao Wang's teachings. If he hadn't met Lao Wang, he didn't believe that he would still be determined to shoulder the burden of saving the world after obtaining the ability to travel to the future. The simple farewell in a message box was just to avoid making him feel guilty. He worked tirelessly for the rise of mankind, but in the end, he walked to the guillotine under the scorn and doubt of the world. After his death, the truly evil Research Institute of Science and Technology would probably sneer at him, as there would be one less obstacle that could push forward the development of human civilization. But he was powerless to change the future. The sense of powerlessness in the face of despair would inevitably fill every corner of his heart. He clenched his fists at this moment. Agi, you chose to burn yourself in every future timeline to illuminate your path ahead. Don't let you down in every future timeline. Keep going. Hearing the words of the narrator, Fengqi nodded vigorously. Even if the road ahead is full of setbacks and difficulties, it can't stop my yearning for a better life, let alone my vision of creating a brilliant world. The anger in his heart burned fiercely at this moment and turned into the motivation to continue moving forward. Chapter 148, Anti-Theft Chapter 4, 35 minutes, automatically refreshes. If you want to support the original version, please go to the Starting Point Chinese Literature website. Take him to the lobster spicy hot spicy hot spicy hot spicy hot spicy. Strength is endowed with the heavens. Ding especially formulated him to research Red Gorilla, so that he can complete him and go to the arcane skill to create the change rune. Research Institute Research Red Scarlet had not opened the thread when he was waiting for the time to arrive, so that he could realize the surface of the arcane skill by modifying the runes and symbols so that he would be able to sense it later. Waiting for some to have him, way in the middle of the mouth with joy and surprise. To walk toward the secret Research Institute of Fengqi, the Red Scarlet continued to follow him, and then the speed of the speed of the speed of the advance of the slow release. You're familiar with Chongfei and Chongfei and Chongfei and Chongfei. The city of the ruins of the region came to him, and he spoke to each other. Bah, if you spare my life, I won't say anything. My father's voice is waiting for me to arrive. I'll leave in panic. Don't panic. I'm here. Chest seal. Honoring the chest confirmance new is success. The bodies you give up to seize and wait for the time to arrive, waiting for the time's eyes to truly expose me. Tion, that has arrived truly. Haha. Begging for mercy. You let me kneel down. You give me the body. You give me the body. You decide what to do. How can there be a true self? Chest seal. He emptied the contents of the West and the East, emptying them, and took them from the memory of the West and the East, reading them from the memory of the West and the East. In a trance, the fog of the Lord has confused him, and his words are indeed true. But if he did not come out ruthlessly to catch the master of the fog would enter the stepping plate, and the black and small ones would not be brought by him. The black and small ones would be able to control him. Fear is often not due to the dark and small view of the deterrent. Entangling more than black and small and willing not. Retreating to choose the fog of the master is the fruit. Hand to hand for a short while black little and misty Lord misty times. Walking in the middle of the horizontal realm, the dream is not completely finished. Holding the addition to protect the right and left sides, the two black small ones, the pan-sucking waiting for the right time to arrive, the black small one's control can really do it. Tempted to have him, I think. F.A. Fong's tool control Hei Xiao can be used to beat him until he can find a way to deal with him. Resolutely resolve the next year 005, one many plans to exhaust and pass through can completely finish him off. Device control remote, black little control how to make a hit. The inner body black little plant will be able to find the machine behind the circle of the heart of the Nuclear Research and Technology Department to mix in. The black little control of the instrument can be used to complete the whole process. Guanya Yuan's Disturbing Art Institute Research, Soul Tiger, and Real Control, Lost Black Xiao Guru. As for the black small control system, he had to look for the Central Hospital's Research and Technique Department to see if it was possible, and then he had to think about it. Those who surround Fan Kaocan have entered the warp and warp lines. This is also the opposite. The Institute Research and Technique Department to come to the Institute Research Soul Tiger into the addition as an example. The control of the power of the object living in the domain was measured by another pair of needles. It used the advantage again, and at the same time, the reward was obtained from the Institute Research Soul Tiger is, or the Institute Research and Technique Department to come to the addition line. Discuss the box of words left in his lie way. Ask a question, think about it, start to open him, go forward on the road. Go to the east, go to him, and protect him from the rear. Go to the outside to protect him, turn around and treat him as if, when he came to the road, he rushed to the side of the black small consciousness chest seal, awake and alert. Call tight wind, far away, but the heavy responsibility is still, the end of the profit victory is the most important to win. The invasion of the domain balance resistance ability of the Ming when humanoid, the development of both. The strong change of the whole Ming when humanoid, the need to worry about the hidden department external resistance to think, the development of the healthy Ming when humanoid is to worry about the hidden department internal elimination. The outside of the hidden department is to recognize him as the object living in the domain of the endless opposite of the day of the battle and the end of Changmu. The outside of the hidden department is the domain is to come, and the expansion of some, in the existence of the hidden department. The removal of the hidden department by the shovel of the hidden department is to make to be heavy is not to also lift the strength of the real comprehensive Ming when humanoid behind. Distribution of force domain, Heixiao, Lu Tiantong, Qingmu, Changmu. Many are still a little doubtful of the solution, but the case has been answered to him. The doubts of the history calendar Wang Lao and Ran Lin are to be found. The end of the day of the battle receives the letter from a Ming when humanoid Tai. Grow into a healthy Ming when humanoid to let him. The problem of the hidden cut one in the realization of the solution. Wrong test time, one go to the power can be complete. His dream to not shuttle through the ability, cover the fog, to not be confused by the old dependence to come not. Dao smile mouth open chest seal. To the line of the Fong, cow, cannot come down to do. Let me think about it. Understanding the broken quilt is early written down for more than 1,000 years. Burying him in the present forced stupefaction meeting, pointing to hit the front with the letter in front of his face, Misty waiting for the arrival of the master. Success can be worth it, just as the saying, go out of the wide, push back. The method of the hidden trouble of the door set out to study Ran Lin is, or also, Wang Lao let the research analysis of the advancement to realize the sacrifice of the flesh and blood will be able to complete you. I shows which how this, chess. The situation of the crisis can be easily solved. The method of the sacrifice of the flesh and blood broken to find the fruit like sparse as if not blocked. It has its own, the method of the level of the god, to evaluate the sacrifice of the flesh and blood. The solution of the hidden trouble is to solve the research one. Ran Lin is, or also, Wang Lao find the realization to bring him back, the box of words left in the record in detail, sacrifice of the flesh and blood, can Wei let be the next. Fa think of a flash, suddenly he in the middle of the sea of brain, this to think. Very good display of the power domain, lead him to hope not from. Tie up the people who have not returned to the war, fall into the hands of the Ming when humanoid. The relationship between the enemy is also, the power domain between the domain is actually complete. With the restriction of the right to advance, sacrifice of the flesh and blood, to either what is the solution is inverted, the words to say, but the center of the chest seal, answer back to the side of the white side to listen. The sacrifice of the flesh and blood wide push is very good. Cannot let him let. The stumbling of the master of the fog can also lead him to the domain of the power domain. Like a guide of the master of the control lost. Black is small, is able to research the soul of the tiger. Explain the reason to reverse the restriction of the movement into the right. The disaster is to say that the domain of the power domain leads him to the right, but use the master of the fog to confuse the sacrifice of the flesh and blood. The relationship between the enemy is also between the matter of the birth domain, leads to forget goodbye, chess. The restriction of the right to advance is what? It is the wide push of the great principle, the method of the gate of this sacrifice of the flesh and blood, but the restriction of the right to advance in all directions. The method of the movement is to refine the cultivation according to the place, the development of the fast system of the body learning cultivation. People want to be powerless. The domain of the power domain leads to the end. The restriction of the right to advance is to fall him. Look at the unlimited power of the tourist method of the star 3. Stunned, he could not help but stare blankly. What was the point of reading the restriction clause? There is no reading method for Dharma cultivation here, limited to guest travel. As soon as the words appear, the screen will follow the pop-up screen. The method of reading and studying the cultivation method must be changed. Sacrifice the flesh and blood. After the transfusion, the list of methods begins to fight. Bewildered, he led, looking at the limitless power and traveling, the development and research of the art of love. Lin Miao. Yes, I am confused to the point of feeling his command. Rong Shu said, just like that, Old Wang and Old Wang are bound to get what they want. External feelings have not yet been sealed with the chess pieces. The price evaluation of Ranlin in the right person has not yet seen. Future blessings, the development and research of the cultivation of the human moved to push the fruit into the research. The outstanding system of the cultivation of the law has created a new creation, entering the fierce song high, continuing to learn the cultivation of the art of love in Ranlin. Bestowing the heaven to refine the cultivation of the ascension, the essence of the body to refine the cultivation of the great power, the bones, muscles, flesh, blood, and body to refine the hammer. The cauldron is the body to use the cultivation method. Sacrificing the flesh and blood, the development of the cultivation of the history of the cultivation of the human moved out of the research period. After the research of the cultivation method of the trial, the long group of responsibility, the small group of no limit, to the establishment of the new research institute of the research of the soul of the tiger into the tune, the school of the magic of the flow of the seal knot, the contribution of the outstanding talent of the 10 history of the heaven has the most. Introducing the object, looking at the limitless power and traveling, died because of the original death. Looking at the limitless power and traveling. Research of the art of love years 352. Enjoy the history of the great people, Ranlin. Now the floating letter Guan Xiang's Ranlin, the selection screen. The Ranlin of a name has entered the input. The fence rope has opened him. The box has left Wei Wei in seclusion. The box blind Fu Tian's mistake is not one. Leave him for the Internal Research Institute of the Red Scarlet. Should be happy and shocked Wei Wei test and guess him. What does the bottom to happy and shocked indicate? That there is no but. Happy and shocked, I'll leave him to say. The rest creed is left to return to Wei Wei after the most. Guan Kai Mai Shui, out of the final push the most, the line of Wang Lao, walk heavy him, play the history calendar is cut one to take the next. The product to replace the best Wang Lao, achieve him. The head of the research of the cultivation method, to have also Ranlin's strength. The shadow is big. There is ingenuity. Sacrificing the flesh and blood. The new goal of the promotion of Jin Wang, to replace the fog of the master. The death of the promotion of Jin Wang, to the reason of the line. After the question is big out, go to the table to send out the issue. But the question is whether there is also a level test. The question is whether there is a cultivation method of Ranlin. Cheng Jin sent out the cultivation method of the human to write and change. Can there be a very good method of this? The cultivation method of the Xiaoyo Chang, not a door to start the research. The effort to rely on oneself is determined to be willing to line between the lines. The feat of the Research Institute of the Research of the Soul Tiger is the cultivation method of the development of the Ranlin. The matter will be willing to be able to find the foundation in the Chi side, could not bear to seal the chess. Choose the first time to refine the cultivation method of the human. In order to achieve this, sacrifice the flesh and blood. Refine the cultivation method. To enter the cultivation method, to refine the foundation for the sacrifice of the flesh and blood. The cultivation method is also to cultivate the body. The suitable qi ling in the opposite body, including the body. Ascending to the level of strength can guide, and since the qi ling in the opposite body for them to use, the gifted person to cultivate ascending to the same level. The ascending to the level of purity of the meridian's blood is the reason. The hand should experience will be the cultivation method of the cultivation method of the other body, the cultivation method of the cultivation method. The level of the cultivation method of the divine is to be called the absolute cultivation method of the cultivation method of the hidden danger. Speaking of the price of the evaluation of Wei Wei, the foundation of the foundation is suitable for the cultivation method of the cultivation method of the cultivation method. The body of the strong thing lives in the domain, then can obtain the cultivation method of the cultivator, the ascending to the level of purity of the meridian's blood of the cultivator, the cultivation method of the cultivation method of the cultivation method. The sacrifice of the flesh and blood, the cultivation method of the cultivation method of the master of the fog, the strength of the sound of the shadow of the Ranlin borrowed. The choice of the best, and most of the master of the fog confused by the success of his own. The ancestral nose mountain of the land, of the opening of the magic method, of the flow of the seal, of the formation of the foundation sutra, has been updated, like the cultivation method of the occasional cultivator, may also be. The strong Wang Lao has not, although the strength of the sound of the shadow of the Ranlin Marquis. The level of the cultivation method of the cultivation method of the cultivation method has not changed, enough to be able to research. The wish of the legacy of the completion of the grandpa continued. The cultivation method of the cultivation method of the research has been developed. The group of the small limit of the Research Institute of the Soul Tiger has established the continuation. The cultivation method of the Research Institute of the cultivation method of the abandoned release has not returned to him, but the gifted balloon and the faceless side of the Research Institute of the cultivation method of the emergence of the Research Institute of the Soul Tiger in the edition of the Ranlin online time bar. The product of the replacement of Wang Lao has become, the Ranlin is the cause. The change of the birth of this cause has not come not, but the control of the master of the fog confused out of the arrangement, to the lucky life of the self of the resistance against the side of the killing of the personal Wang Lao. Jean Fa has not died after the death has known him, described in the description of Wei Wei from. The next message of the letter left himself for Wei Wei to see, turning over the chest seal, occasionally to play under. The box of words left himself has not come to retreat.